fallen in the past 12 hours or so, and we're expecting more. It's obviously still raining, so we have this high risk of excessive rainfall. That means a high risk of flooding. It's a level 4 out of 4. We don't show you that map too much because we don't have that threat very often. But with this track, as Milton tracks right across the peninsula here on the northern side of it, we are going to rack up those rainfall totals even more. Obviously, the southern side is still seeing rain right now. Eventually, the southern side is actually going to dry out a little bit soon.
Back here live, there's so key developments that we are monitoring in the last few minutes that we really want to make very clear to our audience. We're going to go to Wobble Tracker first. And Wobble Tracker is showing the last frame of 1:30 p.m. Eastern, and it is showing that movement to the northeast.
I'm going to get up and show
turn
this.
itself. Yeah. If you put the mic on, put on. Yeah. And Jeff, let's see if we can bring you up here, and we'll take this camera live.
All right, so I want to explain a couple of things. Now, first of all, we were watching agonizingly to see if this storm was going to take that turn to the right, and it looks like it has. It just wobbled straight to the right just now. So this is, I think, a real turn because it is predicted by most of our models. We were hoping that this storm didn't come up here and then take the turn. So it's becoming much less likely that this storm makes landfall in Pinellas. And even if it were to somehow make landfall in the southern part of Tampa Bay, I think that would spare Tampa Bay the worst surge. It would still be some surge, but it wouldn't be the 15 feet of surge. So the worst case scenario of surge, 15 feet of it into Tampa Bay, it's getting harder and harder to happen. So that is some good news. Not good news for the folks in Manatee County and Sarasota County, where this storm is likely to make a direct hit. The eye wall will probably extend from Anna Maria Island all the way down to, I'd say, almost Venice. That's how big the eye wall is going to be. I want you to notice one other thing, JB. This is kind of a little bit in the meteorological weeds, but do you see how that there's really no rain on the southern side of the storm? And the eye wall is expanding out. It's really just the northern side. This is slowly going through what we call an extratropical transition. It's being influenced by the jet stream, and it's going to slowly transition now from a purely tropical system as it crosses the state to an extratropical system once it gets in the Atlantic Ocean. The one thing that you need to know is, although you can clearly see it's weakening, there's no thunderstorms on the south side, so it's doing exactly what we thought it was supposed to do. The jet stream is now going to aid in keeping it strong. So it's going to weaken a little bit more, but then the jet stream, as it moves across the state, instead of a purely tropical storm, or a hurricane, which would quickly weaken as it moves across the state, now that it's got the aid of the jet stream and it's going through an extratropical transition, it's going to not be allowed to weaken as fast once it crosses the state. So it's going to stay a Cat 2, Cat 1 across the whole state because of the extra energy it's going to get from the jet. But as we can tell right now, this system is behaving. It looks like it's wobbling to the east. It was supposed to make that turn to the east. It seems to be doing it exactly as forecast by the National Hurricane Center. But again, it probably could wobble again. If it wobbles back north 20 miles, that creates a problem for Tampa Bay. But it's getting harder and harder for the storm to come onshore in Pinellas. That's the worst case scenario because that puts southerly winds or easterly winds, westerly winds directly into the bay and pushes all the water in. That's becoming a lot less likely at this point. It's still possible. I think another 1 to 2 hours. If it doesn't make that turn further north, then the bay is not going to get the worst case scenario. But the worst case scenario, unfortunately, is panning out right now for the coastline of Manatee and Sarasota counties. So
we are seeing that turn take place on Wobble Tracker, which you can stream, of course, all the time on WFLA.com. And I also want to point out the second development that, of course, is being noted by multiple members of our team, and really the consensus is now developing that this system is not going to be making a post-midnight landfall. Text your friends, let them know. The storyline in advance of today was this happening sometime in the 12 midnight, 3 a.m. range on Thursday morning. Things have sped up considerably with the movement speed at 17 miles an hour. We were doing the basic math earlier, but at this rate, Milton is arriving earlier than expected. And remember that, with, of course, so much activity, see it there on radar, so much activity on the northeastern side of the storm, these impacts are being felt now and will continue to be felt up until landfall and past landfall. So really, it's fair to say right now, Jeff, that we are basically feeling Milton's impacts presently.
Yep.
And tornado warnings, of course, have been occurring left and right across
And
Southwest
these are big
Florida.
tornadoes. These are big. I mean, I got to, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I have covered a lot of hurricanes in my career, and I've never seen a hurricane that has produced such big tornadoes. These are real tornadoes that you can see on the radar. In fact, that's another tornado warning. Let me look it up. It's for Polk County and Hardy County. Let me tell you where exactly.
That's important to note.
Yep, that's important to note. Let me tell you where. It is in effect for
Because
Avon Park.
Polk County and Hardy, we're moving closer now to the Tampa Bay region.
It's moving northwestward, right? Because it's kind of circulating around the storm. So if these circulations keep going in this direction, eventually we're going to see them in Hillsborough and Pasco County as well. Like I was saying, I've been through a lot of storms. Usually these circulations are small. They're immaterial, but they produce quick moving but fairly weak tornadoes. This system is producing tornadoes that I can see on radar are strong tornadoes. So instead of F0s and F1s, we should be prepared for the possibility of EF2s in our viewing area, which we rarely get. So when I tell you there's a tornado warning for your city, Avon Park, I want you to take it seriously and get into an interior room like a bathroom or a closet and keep yourself safe. Because again, we don't see these type tornadoes very often, and I'll tell you why it's happening, JB. It's because this storm is now interacting with the jet stream. So it has the added spin and the added energy of the jet stream, which is causing these thunderstorms to spin more, which is causing these tornadoes to be stronger.
I want to pass along a third note, and I don't know. I'm going to be completely honest with our audience. I have been completely honed in on Hurricane Milton the last 4 or 5 days now, and I haven't been on social media all that much. Now, I'm being told that on TikTok, specifically on that platform and maybe a couple of others, there is an individual that has gone by the name on social media of Lieutenant Dan. People on YouTube and Facebook Live, do you know who I am talking about? Now, I'm not talking about Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, although that was obviously where this sort of originated from. We're going to have an update on this here momentarily, as I'm told. We're getting in some video, but I've been told that Lieutenant Dan, who previously refused to evacuate, has evacuated. That's what I've been told to say to people. That Lieutenant Dan, this social media a person who has been, followed quite a bit over the course of this because of how stubborn they have been. The guy apparently has left the area. Does this make sense to our audience? This is what I was told to say, so hopefully it makes sense. I'm relaying information.
Makes sense to somebody.
So I should probably, so our chat is now freaking out.
Because Lieutenant Dan has left?
Has evacuated.
Okay. Can someone tell me, can someone bring us in on this?
It's not, I don't think it's a joke. I think it's so.
Is it a real person?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know anything about Lieutenant Dan.
The only reason I'm chuckling is because I'm relaying information from our team that has had some time to be on TikTok and understand the magnitude of this story.
Can someone type in, can explain to us or tell us somehow what this means? Should I look up Lieutenant Dan on Twitter?
Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm barely on TikTok.
I'm not really on TikTok all that much
I'm barely
either,
on TikTok.
guys. Sorry.
I still have a MySpace page. I'm kidding, by the way.
I think, no. I'm trying to remember. My goodness, MySpace. It's forever ago.
That band, it means business, JB. That band on the east side there, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, heading towards Polk County, that's the one with the tornadoes. And that's spinning northwest towards northern Hillsborough, like Plant City area, pretty soon. Get ready, folks. These are big tornadoes.
All right, so apparently we're getting in some video. Brian Enton's been on this? Okay, so I've just been told. Brian and I were on the phone yesterday. I'm sorry, Jeff. Apologies here. I'm just gonna pivot here for a second so I can get a little bit more familiar with this.
Another tornado warning.
I haven't even followed Brian's latest, activity on social media. Oh yeah, here he is. Okay. Let's show Lieutenant Dan, if I can. Brian Enton X.
While you're doing that, JB, let me just tell everyone, big tornado about to enter the southeastern side of Highlands County, headed towards Placid Lakes and Sylvan Shores. Folks, this is a strong tornado, could be an EF2 tornado. If you're located in Placid Lakes, or Sylvan Shores, get into your safe place inside your home right now. Also, another tornado just to the west of Avon Park, and it's headed into Polk County right now, about to cross over the border between Highlands and Polk. That also is likely a pretty strong tornado, and it's headed toward Fort Meade. If you're in Fort Meade, get to your safe place right now. Lastly, on the east side of Lake Wales, big tornado, strong tornado, about to cross over 60. If you're located in Lake Wales, something estates. There's a along that road 60. I am familiar with something River Estates, or is it something you would know if you're in Lake Wales? You know what I'm talking about when you're about to head over the more desolate part of 60 and you're headed towards the Kissimmee River Basin. You're headed towards Yeehaw Junction on the very east side of Lake Wales. That's where this circulation's going. Indian River Estates. If that sounds familiar, I don't know if that is what it is, but that's a strong tornado too, folks. Again, point is, tornado warning comes out today. During hurricanes, sometimes I would say, don't worry about this one. It's not a big deal. These are all big deals. And I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to make sure that if you get a tornado warning on your phone, get to an interior portion of your home, bathroom, closet. Worst case scenario, have a mattress ready to put it over your head. Again, not trying to scare you. That's not what we're doing here. I just want to give you the instructions you need to keep yourself and your family safe.
All right. So
yeah, I'm going to have to leave in about a minute or so, JB.
Yeah, you can take off now, Jeff. I'm about to bring in this video from Brian Enton on Lieutenant Dan. I believe it's the same video. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, great. That's good to know. All right, back here with you on stream, folks. Let's show everybody this. Okay, so this is from Brian Enton's Twitter. I have not seen this yet, so full disclaimer, I haven't seen this yet, but let's bring it up and let's play it full.
Everybody's worried about you.
Who's worried about it?
It's all over TikTok.
Everybody, across the country. I'm gonna go live in a minute.
Are you gonna be okay?
I'm gonna be fine.
I don't think people realize you're so close to down. I mean, you could just get off if something bad happened. You know what I mean?
I'm not going anywhere because the safest place to be is on a boat in a flood. Okay, we learned that with Noah. Everybody that stayed on land drowned. Noah and the animals lived. So I'm fine.
Do you have any animals?
No, I wish I did.
Okay.
I could use 2 females.
Well, you got all the news crews right here during the storm, so you can just, if you need anything. Everybody's worried about you,
I know
buddy.
everybody's worried about me. Everybody wants me to get off the boat. People don't. Being that I'm tied up to the cleat on the dock there, and that's secured to the concrete, which is secured to all this thing. I have a secured anchor point. I'm tied to the boat. If the tide goes up, I go up. As long as the water stays out of the boat, I'll be fine. And the wind is, it's not a tornado. It's not going to get lifted up and thrown into Kansas. Okay, it's not like that. I'm not suicidal, but I'm putting it in God's hands and taking it out of mine and man's.
All right.
So I'm sitting tight. I'm going to play it out.
Well, like I said, we're all right up here, so if you need anything, everybody's parked right here, okay?
I love you all, and I thank you for the concern. But I'm not nutty. I'm just doing what my father told me to do, and I'm doing it, and I'm being me. I don't go with the grain. I'm against the grain because it's all just, you're all robots. You're all sheep following the masses. And I'm the black sheep. I'm the one that does what I feel is right. And I don't care what anybody says or wants to do about it. I do what I think is right. It's just God found me 10 years ago when I found him, and he's been my right hand all along. He told me to come here, I'm here. And I'm putting my life in his hands. If I'm supposed to go home tonight, then I'm going to go home tonight. Because he's calling me home for nothing to do.
Well, we'll check on you, okay?
Thank
We'll
you.
be up here and we'll check on you.
I appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you, sir. Stay
Thank you.
safe. You got some time to rest. All right.
I only got about 2 hours sleep. Knocking on my window. Can I get a video? Can I get a video? No! Get the hell away from me.
I struggled to catch that there at the end. There was clearly a humorous exchange, but that was Brian Enton, who I'm trying to see where he's at, and maybe we can get him on the program. it would really be great to have Brian. Brian and I were on the phone. News Nation's senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, he was actually driving in yesterday, and he and I were on the phone for a little bit chatting about the area and the current conditions and so on and so forth. Actually, it wasn't yesterday. The days are blurring together. It was a couple days ago. All right, look, from what I have been told, that Lieutenant Dan has evacuated. But all I know is that information. I don't even have a source for that information. So I'm going to try to alert our team. And find out exactly where that information came from, if it came from News Nation. A new tornado warning has just come in. Hardee County and DeSoto County, very much in line with what we have seen in the last last couple of hours. Nathaniel, where did that information come from about Lieutenant Dan being evacuated? I want to be clear. Oh, got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, so here's let me pass along what Nathaniel just shared with me. So Brian Enton is saying that the gentleman who goes by Lieutenant Dan, his real name, let's see here, is Joseph Malinowski, and that the man that has been nicknamed Lieutenant Dan on TikTok, this is the last I'm going to talk about this because we have so many other things to get to, that he has, News Nation's Brian Enton is reporting that he has not evacuated, but Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, that's how big this story is that the mayor of Tampa was just talking about it at the podium and has apparently said that he has been evacuated out of the area, or at least out of his boat. Well, I just played, so that was an hour ago, though. Oh, okay. So Brian Enton snapped a photo of Joseph Malinowski sticking his head out of the boat to confirm that he's still there, even though Tampa Mayor Jane Castor said that he did actually. Right. Okay, I see the updated tweet. Let me read the tweet from Brian. I know the mayor of Tampa just said in her press conference that Lieutenant Dan went to a shelter. He didn't. I'm standing right here. So if things changed in the last hour, I do not know. All I know is apparently this story is big enough that the mayor of Tampa is talking about it, and it's big enough that it's blowing up on TikTok. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. We're located here in Tampa. When we get an update, would you pass along? Let me know so I can share it. It'll be in an article on WFLA.com. Let's go back to the wobble tracker and just resume our coverage of the storm here. So here's the deal. We're now up to the 130, 40, and 50 scans on wobble tracker, and we are absolutely noticing a turn. And so there was, look at the blue line, folks. If you continued the blue line north, we're talking about impacts for Pinellas County and then, of course, unsurvivable storm surge in the Tampa Bay area, a very vulnerable section of the Gulf Coast side of Florida. But the blue line, and if you follow the storm, the blue line is not going to be staying straight because that's the past track. We are clearly experiencing a turn here, just as the National Hurricane Center forecast yesterday in their 5 o'clock update. I cannot begin to stress how big that 5 o'clock update was yesterday when we had that big shift to the south. That shift south pushes it more to being a Sarasota and Venice event rather than a Tampa and Sarasota event, at least for the worst of this storm, even though there's going to be widespread flooding, wind damage. There's going to be storm surge along the coast, power outages, tornado warnings, everything you would expect with a major hurricane making landfall in the state of Florida. As of 2 o'clock, the speed dropped just a little bit. The 2 o'clock update has just come in moments ago, and it's interesting to note that we were up to 17 miles an hour, and that quickening trend, that trend of it picking up pace and picking up speed has not continued. It is not getting to 18, 19, 20 miles an hour. We have now come down to 16 miles an hour. It's a small difference, but it is noteworthy that we have decreased speed and not increased speed. The storm, you can see there clearly, is still a Cat 4, expected to become a Cat 3 in the next update, and then, of course, make landfall somewhere in the Cat 3 to Cat 2 range, somewhere in the area between Anna Maria Island and Sarasota. So that's the latest that we have from the National Hurricane Center. We'll continue, of course, to monitor the storm's progress. And let's just see if we get in any additional frames here on Wobble Tracker. Again, this is streaming all the time on WFLA.com. So, let's see here. We are going to, I think, send it to our broadcast coverage. Let's listen in.
Talking about, these power outages are going to be widespread, so keep those weather radios handy and keep it tuned to one of those stations, and you can stay informed with us throughout Milton.
All right, more coverage of Hurricane Milton after the break.
Enhance your view with Armor View window.
All right, so back here in the Stream Center, let's get to some of the comments that are coming in. And, oh, man, I just want to pass this one along. For people looking for meteorologist Eric Stone, he has moved to WFLA's backup location. Evan saying, #Hey, Eric. Stay safe, Eric. Praying for your safety as well, JB. Remember how scary it was with Helene when we lost power. Oh, okay, wow. We just got in an update on Lieutenant Dan. Just moments ago. I'm delivering updates as they come in. Literally within seconds ago, News Nation's Brian Enton just putting out a notice to our teams because News Nation is owned by our parent company, Nexstar. That's, of course, the same company that owns us here at WFLA. We're all under the same umbrella. That's why Brian and I have worked together so much in the past. Brian just confirmed moments ago that this gentleman by the name of Lieutenant Dan Joseph Malinowski, he is on the boat that Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, who said that he had evacuated, that appears to be incorrect right now. Now, is Jane Castor going to go up to the boat herself and encourage him to evacuate? Who knows? I am playing catch up a bit on this story clearly, but if I get updates on that story, I will pass it along. So Wobble Tracker coming in here with the 150 frame and about to get the 2 o'clock frame coming in here momentarily. Let's update everybody on the 2 o'clock advisory. 2 o'clock advisory, Hurricane Milton right now is a Category 4 hurricane with max wind speeds of 130 miles per hour. The pressure has elevated a bit to 944 millibars. There's the spaghetti models. None of them go through the center of Tampa Bay anymore. That is a massive development versus what we were staring at 48 hours ago, which took this storm through the heart of Tampa Bay and really the southeastern quadrant of the eye, pushing all of that water into the bay. What we actually might have happen now, interestingly enough, is the water gets sucked out of the bay because of the wind spinning in the opposite direction, which we saw during Ian. So, and the movement speed at north by northeast at 16 miles an hour, that's something that we've been monitoring on Wobble Tracker. Some of those models going as far south as Venice, but the NHC's track still has this going really through the Sarasota airport area. I believe that there was a video that was just put in, a video of Oh no, this is I'm sorry. This is the video of, let me be clear. This was from Ian. This was when the water was sucked out of Tampa Bay. That is the center of Tampa Bay that you're looking at there off in the distance. And you can see how it is exposed. That's because I would imagine that whole area is just littered with fish. or we have a lot of fish that are in these waters here in shallow waters. Probably, I would imagine it's a very confusing and disorienting scenario for a lot of marine wildlife in the bay. But this is again during Ian from several years ago. And but this is a similar impact to what we could see in the bay. Folks on social media in the coming hours, I would say it's going to happen overnight. But there's going to be nighttime video, nighttime pictures of the bay having a lot of the water, a majority of the water in Tampa Bay being sucked out by the storm into the Gulf, and the Gulf itself thrashing water up on the coast of Sarasota and Manatee counties. So this is the impact that we're talking about here. It's going to be a similar phenomenon to what we saw in Hurricane Ian. Let's get back here to the very latest. And we now have the 2 o'clock scan. Let's follow Wobble Tracker. We have zoomed in on Wobble Tracker. This is noteworthy as well. So now we're really micro-analyzing wobbles, but there is absolutely that northeast trend, and this is putting the storm right on track for a landfall event in the greater Sarasota area south of Tampa Bay. Now, it's important to note that this storm could wobble north still, but the models are suggesting that this is going to hold. If the wobbles do occur, to the surprise of the National Hurricane Center and forecasters everywhere, then you'll see it on the real-time wobble tracker when the scans come in. Let's get to Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli downstairs now on WFLA News Channel 8.
There's already flooding ongoing along the immediate coast here. Places like Sarasota. Venice has already seen about 5 inches of rain right here. But what I do want to show you is the velocity scans. And typically, and if you watch me do tornado coverage, or Rebecca, you'll notice pretty often we barely can see the tornadoes. These are as clear as day, which leads me to believe that the winds in some of these tornadoes are probably likely somewhere around 120 plus miles an hour. So right there on the east side of Lake Wales, that is 60. On the way to Yeehaw Junction, this is now past over 60, and it's moving northwest. It's not moving straight north. So get ready in Haines City and in Davenport and on the east side of Dundee. This tornado is likely going to be headed your way on the east side. Eventually, it will probably cross over I-4. Again, that's a powerful circulation. Look at the blues. Look at the reds. That right there is where the tornado is located. All right, let's check out some other tornadoes for you because, again, we're going to be getting these tornado warnings on and off throughout the afternoon, and we're going to show you them. We're going to tell you about them. We're going to tell you the cities that are impacted. We're going to ask you to get inside your safe place, and then we're going to move on to the other tornadoes across the area. This one does not look as strong. It was stronger before. This is headed towards Fort Meade. It very well could still be a tornado, so if you're in Fort Meade, get to your safe space because that tornado is going to be heading your way. All right, zooming out a little bit more. This is a bigger tornado. This right now is in DeSoto County. It's about to cross over into Hardy County. It looks like there are likely 2 tornadoes here, one right along 17, one on the east side of 17. This is going to be headed north. Again, they're north of Arcadia right now, so in Arcadia, it looks like the worst has passed for you, but pretty soon, these circulations, look at that right there, right at the end there. Look at all, if you look really closely, you can see the pinks, very close to the greens. Those are really strong winds. And these are headed across into Hardy County towards Wauchula. If you're in Wauchula, you have a couple of minutes, but when you see that the weather is really starting to go downhill, get to your safe place because that tornado is going to be heading your way. Okay, let's show you the latest on Milton. As of 2 p.m., winds are now down to 130 miles an hour, so it's a borderline Cat 4, almost Cat 3. It is behaving exactly the way we thought it would. It was a Cat 5 earlier today. Now it's a Cat 4. And I would say within the next few hours, it will be a Cat 3. It's undergoing what is an extratropical transition. Why is that important? It's important because the jet stream is lifting it to the north, but it's also imparting energy to it. Now, because the jet stream is imparting energy to this system, that's why these tornadoes are strong. That's why they're not just run-of-the-mill EF0s or EF1s. Some of them may be EF2s, and that's because the jet stream is involved. You have the energy from the hurricane, the energy from the jet stream. And what's going to happen also is because the energy from the jet stream is infusing into this storm, it's not going to allow the storm to weaken very fast from here. So it'll come on shore as a Cat 3, but it will remain a 2 as it moves across Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands, Polk County. That's likely where the eye is going to go, right about here. And even when it gets to the east coast around Cape Canaveral, it is likely to be, I think, a Cat 1 hurricane. And again, because the jet stream is aiding and abetting it, it is going to have the chance to stay stronger for a longer period of time. And that means if you're inland, what does that mean to you in Polk County, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, eastern Manatee County? It means that you should expect hurricane force wind gusts probably to 100 miles an hour. And if you're along the coast, starting at around 5 or 6 o'clock, you're going to start to see those hurricane force wind gusts. Probably 6 to 7 o'clock, that's when your winds are sustained at hurricane force, and you're starting to see those gusts to about 110, 120 miles an hour. You should prepare for that possibility. That means it's going to get scary. Most homes should be able to survive those winds. These are not winds like Hurricane Michael or Hurricane Andrew where they come in and they bulldoze homes. These are not those type of winds, but they can compromise your roof. Trees will fall. So again, be very, very careful as the meat of this storm moves in. It is not the kind of storm like Andrew. Again, I'm just reiterating it because I don't want to scare anyone, but it can compromise roofs and it can cause some structural damage. All right, so it turns into a Cat 1 and it moves out by tomorrow morning. So our conditions will be improving a lot by tomorrow morning, and that's because it's moving faster than it was before. Zooming in just a little bit, you'll see where the center of the track is right there, still exactly where it was last night. And right now, it seems to be on track, moving in the exact direction that we thought it would be moving. So that would mean landfall somewhere around Sarasota, give or take. But remember, at the last minute, just a 20-minute wobble puts it on the south side of Tampa Bay. But one thing I do want to mention, and then I'm going to toss it over to Rebecca Barry, because Rebecca Barry, I'm sure, has some information on the system right now. But one thing I want to mention is that it's going to be hard for this system at this point to make landfall in Pinellas County. It could still happen, but in the next hour or two, it won't be able to happen anymore. And that's important because a worst case scenario for Tampa Bay is the storm comes on shore right about there and it starts pushing that water into the bay. If the storm were to actually make landfall around the Sunshine Skyway, it would not be able to push all that water in. Sure, the storm surge would be worse, but it wouldn't be nearly as bad as if it moves on shore in places like Pinellas County, St. Pete Beach, Madeira Beach. So right now, it's looking like the worst surge, Bradenton down to Sarasota. And look at that swath of really strong wind gusts. These are 110-mile-an-hour wind gusts and possibly higher. Clearwater all the way down through St. Petersburg, straight across downtown Tampa. The worst of the winds, Bradenton, Sarasota, Venice. I expect some wind gusts to 120 miles an hour. And even in places like Lakeland, Bartow, and Wauchula, we are looking at the possibility of a couple of wind gusts over 100, 110 miles an hour. So you can imagine there'll be a lot of trees down, and we're going to see significant power outages. All right, with that said, let's bring in meteorologist Rebecca Barry. And, you know, we were talking about before. You've been covering hurricanes a long time. You've been in Florida a long time. Have you seen a hurricane produce such strong signatures on radar before?
Not really since Charlie. Charlie was the last one that we had that just was very tornadic, and it was very strong signatures. I mean, we just got this new one, so I wanted to bring this to your attention down near Lake Placid. And when the box is blinking like that, that means it's confirmed. And so this is a tornado on the ground. So what this tool does is it lets us see the rotation on the radar. Sometimes that rotation doesn't make it all the way down into a tornado. And the National Weather Service sends out teams once the weather's cleared to determine if it was a tornado or not. But when they see it on the ground or a storm spotter spots it, that's when they issue that it's a confirmed tornado. And that's what's going on through Lake Placid right now. If it holds together, it may end up impacting Sebring. So make sure you're staying weather aware and have a way to get your warnings. And so what we're looking at right now is, of course, mainly inland tornadoes. And as the back half of the storm starts to move on the southern portions, that's when we could see the potential for some tornadoes in our coastal counties. And so we're keeping an eye on the wobble tracker because that turn to the east told us that we are looking at that potential more southern landfall, and that does not include the surge in the bay. And so that's what we're watching on wobble tracker right now to see if it's following the forecasted track. This is the past track, and this is the current position. And so this is what we're watching with the wobble tracker. You can see it moving, taking that jog to the east, making that turn instead of continuing to move straight, which would have been potentially a more clear water landfall if it had continued just due straight from where it was. And so what we're going to do right now is check out some of our tower cameras, because we will start to lose these as the sites lose power, as we lose internet once the winds get a little bit higher. But this is how it looks out over the Veterans Expressway right now from our Veterans Forward camera. Marina Point starting to get a little bit rocky. So this is looking at the Gandy Bridge right there, and you can't even see the Gandy Bridge. So rainfall rates and the wind, all a problem. Our sensors don't operate very well at high wind levels here, just the way that they're built, and so it is much more than 10 or 15 miles per hour there. When you're looking the other direction, this is Bayshore Boulevard. You can see that wind-blown rain, but no flooding there yet on Bayshore Boulevard. This is a flooding spot. It's a hot spot that we see when we see some heavy rainfall, so that may occur during some of those heavier rain bands. This is looking out over our micro-lumen camera, getting pretty shaky looking over downtown Tampa right there. Now, our rainfall gauges are pretty good. It doesn't account for rain that when it's very windy, it doesn't give a good reading because a lot of that rain doesn't make it down into the rainfall sensor. But in general, we've already seen 2 to 3 inches of rain area wide. You can see how heavily it's raining in Riverview right now. And then let's go ahead and check out Lakewood Ranch, looking pretty breezy. Look at those palm trees right there. But it unfortunately does look like it's going to be picking up a lot over the course of the afternoon hours. In Polk County, think things shaping up a little on the soggy side as well. Checking out St. Pete on our California Closets camera, things you can't even really see downtown. And our Sarasota camera will be a really interesting one to watch because it is a little bit inland, and so it does have the chance to keep power a little bit longer than coastal Sarasota does. Newport Richey, things starting to get very windy and rainy there as well, as you might expect. And so what we're looking at right now, we've made it through our camera, so let's move on. I'll give you an impact overview, excuse me. So from the eye wall, the southern edge of the eye wall south, that's where we'll see the worst damage, 10 to 15-foot storm surge. We're going to see strong hurricane force wind gusts over most of our counties to the south of I-4, 100 miles per hour plus. But the rainfall flooding is going to be a different story. We're going to see some very heavy rainfall from this point forward. We've already seen over 2 inches, and that's going to be mainly to the north of the eye wall. So those are the most concerning impacts that we're looking at. And after that, we're looking at widespread power outages. So we'll be tracking those all afternoon long as well.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Jeff. A lot to take in. Just so much happening, and it's happening. It seems to be at a faster pace than we expected. Hurricane Milton, as Rebecca just pointed out there, threatening to bring catastrophic storm surge to Sarasota and Manatee counties.
Our News Channel 8's Brittany Muller is live at the Emergency Operations Center in Bradenton. And Brittany, that's an area that really needs to be paying close attention to the storm, and where we had talked about it possibly coming ashore around 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, it's now moved up to 7 to 8 p.m.
Right, and that's why residents out here in Manatee County need to remain vigilant right now and listen to local law officials at this time. We just heard from Jody Fish. She's the public safety director here in Manatee County, and she says wherever you are right now is where you'll be riding out this storm. We're in a lull right now, so don't be deceived. We are experiencing some wind, but earlier on we saw those rain bands and lightning and thunder, and so it just keeps coming and coming and coming. So I want to let you know that EMS and fire rescue crews are no longer responding to the barrier islands here in Manatee County. Bridges are closed. That's including the Skyway. We also know in preparation for Hurricane Milton, the county says haulers have been working around the clock. They've removed more than 10 million pounds of debris from Manatee County. That's because we saw those impacts from Hurricane Helene. They're still recovering from that here in Manatee County. This is an area that's been devastated, and we've been reporting on it since Helene swept through this area, and debris is still out here. Although the county had been working on those operations of removing that debris, they had to stop that for right now because we're feeling those impacts out here. We also know Lake Manatee Dam has been lowered to 36 feet. That's a question that viewers have been asking us at this time. We also know Manatee County has a hotline. It's called Manatee 311. Those workers have been fielding more than 5,000 calls, answering questions about sandbags, shelters, everything that you can imagine. So we're out here. We're trying to provide all the information that viewers are asking us right now. We're remaining safe as well. That's another question that everyone has. And we'll be out here providing the latest information here in Manatee County. For now, reporting live, Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
Thanks, Brittany. And team coverage continues right now as we continue to track this massive Hurricane Milton.
News Channel 8's Kenny Morales joining us live from Bay Pines in the community there in Pinellas County. Kenny, what are you seeing?
Hey guys, yeah, so like I mentioned it, I just want to set the scene a little bit. We are just outside of Bay Pines. We're actually on the other side of that bridge that kind of goes over Boca Ciega Bay, right? Real quick, I just want to turn in here. Thankfully, it looks like most people have heeded those evacuation orders. Haven't seen too many cars out here other than, 1 or 2 here or there. but the conditions are starting to worsen. It kind of slaps you in the face in bands, right? You start out, it goes, oh, okay, some little light rain, it's not too bad. 5 minutes later, we had sideways rain. You know, winds were picking up like crazy. You can see here the storm surge starting to pick up along Boca Ciega Bay. And we were about to pull up here into Harbor Lights Mobile Home Park. Obviously, evacuation orders for A, B, C, and all mobile home parks here in Pinellas County. Not only dealing with storm surge issues, but you're obviously going to have wind damage. And then we pulled up and we saw this. And this is kind of the other thing we've been talking about, right? Because of Hurricane Helene and all the efforts that have been made lately to try and pick up the damage that's been left by that hurricane, you're left with sites like this. Just a gigantic debris left over by Helene. And look, there's only so much manpower we have, right? That hurricane hit just a week or two ago, but unfortunately, this is still here. And with those hurricane winds, you're going to see those become projectiles. And then you have a mobile home park right next to that and you know, apartments around the area. Very, very dangerous scene. So thankfully, we actually drove through that mobile home park about 5 or 10 minutes ago. Didn't see anybody out there other than there was one gentleman who was unfortunately.
All right, Kenny Morales driving around there in Bay Pines, and boy, that field of debris is just so obvious that these are the projectiles that everybody's worried about when the winds come. And he's already feeling the bands. We experienced that. But as we continue our coverage in Pinellas County now, we move on to our next reporter.
And Marilyn Parker joins us. She is just outside of Pinellas County where the rain's coming down pretty steadily. Marilyn, tell us what you're seeing there.
The rain is steady, just like you said, and that wind is picking up. Right now, we're right about in Largo. We're not far from the intersection of 113th Street and Ridge Road. That is further down there. Not a lot of traffic on the roads, which tells us, again, that people are heeding the directions to get out of the area. This is not a storm that you want to take any chances with. And again, we've been emphasizing how much rain we're going to see with this storm. This area knows that rain showers alone can produce a lot of flooding. We've seen a lot of trouble even before Hurricane Helene. We remembered having a lot of the flooding in our different areas, especially throughout South St. Petersburg. So that's something that officials want you to keep in mind. Also, the ground has been wet. We're expecting high wind speeds, and so the chance for trees to fall and light poles, that increases as well. St. Pete City officials wanted to make sure that people understood that this is something that you want to go ahead and leave the area if you still can, while you still can. The hours are definitely winding down as that storm, Hurricane Milton, approaches us. And so what you want to do is evacuate as soon as possible or get to a safe place. There are multiple shelters that are still available throughout the area. We have that information on WFLA.com. As you can see, the wind is picking up right now. It's very, very strong, and it's only going to get stronger. Again, a lot of people have evacuated from this area, but we do see some folks still out on the road. You just want to make sure that you're making the right decisions right now because, again, once the storm come in, officials say that a lot of their law enforcement and first responders cannot get out into you until the storm passes. That's important for you to keep in mind when it comes to your family's safety. We're going to continue to keep you updated here live in Pinellas County. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Marilyn. And we have Jeff and Rebecca joining us now. We're kind of the new crew that came in at 2, and I'd like to set the table for people maybe just tuning in. We were surprised that's how some things had sped up with the storm. So if you could talk a little bit about our northern counties, of course, Sarasota, where things are expected to be probably the worst, and south of there.
So everything has sped up. Looks like landfall is going to be maybe 7 p.m. or so, give or take. But the eye wall, Rebecca, of course, is going to move on shore like 5. You know, the northern part of the storm, a lot of rain. I mean, rain for 12 hours at 1 to 2 inches an hour. So some places will get 18 inches of rain. So if you don't think you're going to get flooding in your home because you're not going to get storm surge, there's a chance you could get it from rain. So elevate your valuables if you're going to be north of this storm. But the good news is it's becoming a lot less likely, Rebecca, right, that this storm gets far enough north in Tampa Bay so that it could push a worst-case scenario surge in.
Exactly. So about 3 or 4 days out, the uncertainty is so high with these storms. Are you going to be the one that gets the surge, or are you going to be the one that gets the wind? And we're starting to be able to narrow the field because we're getting closer to landfall. The wobble tracker showing that storm did make that turn east as expected, and that does indicate the south of the bay landfall, which takes surge out of the bay. And so now we're looking at the potential for tornado damage. We're looking at wind damage, and then rainfall flooding to the north of the eye. To the south of the eye is where we're mainly going to see that 10 to 15 foot storm surge. So Sarasota all the way down to Venice. I'm worried about Port Charlotte, worried about Mount Lachey, those areas.
And these tornadoes, I mean, they can pop up anywhere. We started seeing them even almost deep into Highlands County, and then they kind of moved our way. We've seen some in Polk County.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to keep track of all of these. Are we concerned that that might actually move into the northern parts of like Hillsborough and Pasco and those areas?
It could rotate around. We typically see areas, certain bands tend to be a little bit more tornadic because of the way that they're moving across the land and interacting with the friction there. And so we could start to see that. But for right now, it does look like it's a little bit more inland, Polk County, Highlands County, Hardy, DeSoto.
And Jeff, we all have to be ready for tornadoes. And like I said before, these are strong. These are not your grandmother's tornadoes. And I say that because
these aren't water spouts.
We get a lot of tornadoes and hurricanes here, and I've never seen circulations as strong as this. These are probably EF2 tornadoes, so these are you have to take seriously. The tornadoes we usually get in hurricanes, you wouldn't even know they were there because you already have the hurricane wind, right? These are going to be stronger than that.
So, Jeff, you were talking right when you came on about how this is behaving as expected.
That's right.
But this is a path we don't see typically come straight across the Gulf.
Sure.
And you've got a trough up that's pushing it down. I'm not the meteorologist.
Yes, it's a jet stream that's diving south. It's doing some interesting stuff right now. You probably noticed that the north end of the storm now has all the thunderstorms. The southern doesn't. We talked about that. It's going through an extra tropical transition, which means that it's going to take longer for it to weaken. It'll weaken to, it's already a borderline Cat 3, Cat 4 right now. It'll be a Cat 3 at landfall, just like we expected. But because now the energy from the jet stream is entering the picture, the tornadoes are stronger because the jet stream's adding that extra wind aloft. And it also is imparting energy to the storm so that it doesn't weaken as much as it moves across. So usually a storm during the middle of the summer that hits Sarasota County, by the time it gets to, Polk County, the winds would be much weaker. It's going to take longer for these winds to weaken because the jet stream has entered the picture.
And it's going to be a long process. We're in it. I mean, we talk about the eye, but I mean, basically I mean, Milton has arrived for the most part. The outer bands, they're here.
Yeah, I was just checking, and we've already got sustained winds above 45 miles per hour in St. Pete, so I'd imagine the skyway's closed and the other bridges are right behind that.
So where a surge may not be the biggest concern in Tampa Bay, we are still going to see all those other effects. Like you said, the rain piling up, the high winds.
That's right.
All the things that don't take your foot off the pedal if you're...
Yeah, I mean, I think, we often talk about surge so often, but over the past 10 years, inland flooding has surpassed surge for fatalities, because I think we've focused so much on communication of surge, but we saw what happened in North Carolina with Helene. Flooding is becoming a bigger problem lately. Storms have more water than they used to, and they're defying logic in the amount of rain that they're producing. So don't poo-poo. I'm just going to get heavy rain. It could be really heavy rain, and it could end up in your home.
Yeah, a lot to take in here. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have you guys come back, but we also have crews stationed elsewhere we want to touch base with. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Back here with you live on stream, folks. JB here with you as we look at the latest with Hurricane Milton. We want to see Wobble Tracker. That's obviously really extremely important at this hour. The latest scans are in, and everything is lining up with this turn northeast that we have been monitoring over the last, I would say, 45 minutes or so. The real-time Wobble Tracker is streaming on WFLA.com/Wobble Tracker. You can find it there. And so as far as the latest with this storm, we are expecting a landfall tonight instead of in the midnight hours. And what I'd like to do as well is introduce everybody to, I don't think Justin has been on Tracking the Tropics before. I think that this is going to be a bit of an introduction to our audience. Folks, Justin Mosley, the chief meteorologist at WSNN in Sarasota.
Yes.
Justin,
good to be here.
It's good to have you here. Let's explain first and foremost why the chief meteorologist at WSNN in Sarasota is here in Tampa and not in Sarasota. First and foremost, we are sister stations, right? WFLA and WSNN.
Correct.
And you're up here with us, and perhaps you can explain to our audience a little bit as to why, because Sarasota is right in the thick of this in the coming hours.
Yes, it is. And I'm here because our station is, I should say WFLA is now being simulcast on WSNN TV, and I'm here to help out the team here. We're all one big Max Defender weather team, and the conditions aren't going to be so great in Sarasota County, Manatee County. Much of the entire Bay Area is going to have to contend with this storm. Again, the model data has been pretty consistent with honing in on Sarasota, Manatee as of late. Again, it's still just a little too close to call to really rule out landfall somewhere around the Tampa Bay area. And as we look at the radar here, you can see the squalls are already passing across the area. There's the center of the eye. That's the core of the hurricane, still positioned off of our coast. So I know it's rough conditions out there right now, but things will continue to kind of go downhill for the remainder of the afternoon and into tonight, JB.
So speed is something that we've been talking a lot about, Justin, because if it picks up speed and goes faster, it's less impacts and less time over the peninsula. But also, too, if it does pick up speed, that means that it's hitting us at a higher strength. So we're trying to break down the relationship between speed and impacts. What would be your take on it?
Well, the forward speed is critical when it comes to the amount of rainfall that we'll see across the west coast of the state and throughout much of the Florida peninsula. Where these far-reaching effects it's not just going to be the Tampa Bay area, the Sun Coast. This is going to stretch across Central Florida and impact the East Coast as well. But again, the forward speed, the quicker it moves, it does help to cut down or reduce the amount of rainfall totals that we will see, which will help out with our flooding situation. Now, the latest model data does have most of the heaviest rain taking place from the Bay and northward, and we're thinking on the order of 5 to 10 inches. Of course, we will have some isolated spots that will be have greater totals than that. And a big concern actively right now, and all of our meteorologists here at the station have been tracking these active tornado warnings, not only in our area, but across much of the Florida peninsula. Those outer rain bands are starting to kind of really move in and cause a lot of issues there.
Let's go around the area. What I'd like to do now is show everybody live cameras from around Tampa Bay, from really up and down Florida's Gulf Coast.
Okay,
we're starting here with Pier 22, Manatee River in Bradenton.
Yes, very familiar with this. This is our Skycam there from our WSNN station in Sarasota. And this is looking to the west down the Manatee River at Pier 22. And you can see cloudy skies. This is a great camera to really illustrate the storm surge. I use this many times during our coverage with Helene and also Debbie, but we can see that the winds are already starting to pick up over the Manatee River right now. And again, if you have any reports there, you can send it to report it via WFLA.com as we kind of watch the real-time wobble tracker, that familiar graphic that we keep a very close eye on the center and what it is doing at this hour.
All right, so next up in the queue, let's see here, we have Key West. Yeah, the southernmost point. And while Key West is not getting a direct impact, this is what happens when you make the Gulf angry.
Yes, indeed. It's churned up, and it's a part of the storm surge that we mentioned. This particular storm, Milton, started life as a very tight, compact storm. That's one of the reasons it was able to intensify so quickly. Smaller storms have a tendency to be able to do that, also can weaken quickly, but as we've been mentioning, as it gains latitude, the storm itself is going to broaden out. It is weakening. We see dry air intrusion on the west and southwest side, but the wind flow, or I should say the wind field around it, is expanding. So all of that works into what you're seeing there in Key West with the storm surge in the Gulf of Mexico being driven up against the west coast of the state of Florida and down into the Florida Keys. And that's going to be a big problem later tonight. And that's really going to be critical where the storm does make landfall, because wherever that center comes ashore, the highest storm surge values will be along the coastline at the point of landfall and points to the south. If this indeed does come into Manatee, Sarasota counties, that would put the Tampa Bay area in a much better situation when it comes to storm surge. Now, we will still have to contend with tornadoes, damaging wind gusts, and of course that potential of flooding rains out there as well that we'll be monitoring with our Max Defender radar. So yeah, very active here, JB, at this hour, and things will only get worse from here.
All right, let's go to Naples Pier. And oh my goodness, there's people out there taking photos and videos, but you're looking here live at Hurricane Milton, no doubt.
That's the influence there. And again, the surge is still yet to come. And we also look for the highest values during the period of high tide. We'll have to look at the wind direction if it's on shore during the period of high tide, which would work to kind of exacerbate things there. But yeah, there's Collier County, live view in Naples. I remember watching this same camera during Ian, and that pier was nearly underwater. Right now, again, folks should not be out on the beach. We certainly don't recommend that. But just cloudy skies, an angry Gulf of Mexico. But again, things will get worse from here.
Right. And moving on here, last up, I believe that we have, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. This wasn't an option for you to drive here, Justin. You couldn't drive over this bridge. How did you get here?
I took 75, and boy, what a tumultuous drive it was. These downpours and tropical squalls are going to become a lot more frequent, and they are pretty much steady right now in our southern communities, Manatee and Sarasota County here in the Tampa Bay area. And again, weather will continue to deteriorate really from here through landfall and even thereafter for our viewers in Polk County and listeners there.
All right, let's come back now to WFLA.com/report it. What we're going to do, Justin and myself, we're going to break down some of the photos and videos that are coming in from you watching from around the Florida Peninsula. We want to, again, caution, if you're going to use WFLA.com/report it, please do so safely and responsibly. There's no video or photo that is worth compromising your safety. Just please be safe out there. You can show us what's going on in your area, but do so from a safe location. We will not be showing any driving videos. We won't be showing any videos or any photos that show somebody taking it from a situation that compromises their safety. So just please use the tool safely and responsibly. But let's get to that tool now and show what we have coming in. This was earlier from Jennifer in Northport. We're going to move on here. Next up in the queue is Gina from Southgate. This is a picture of her backyard, and it shows significant flooding in her backyard. It might not look significant, but when it's your backyard, Justin, you hate to see it.
You do. And this is just a sign of things to come. What we would call that kind of ponding of the water is what you see there. And hopefully that lanai does survive. Southgate area there, and I believe is in Polk County. Again, inland areas will have to contend with these strong winds as well. Hurricane warnings up for the entire Tampa Bay area within our market here, which extends well inland to Polk, Highlands County, and over into the Orlando metro area. Hurricane warning is up, and this extends into the east coast of the state. So this is a large storm. It began as a tight, compact system, but again, everything is going up according to plan. The wind field is expanding. The system is becoming a lot larger, and certainly weather conditions going downhill. Another picture we got, or video, I should say, from
Jamie in Northport showing us some flooding on her street. Clearly, this is between bands because it doesn't look like it's raining there, but it shows her street covered in water. Jamie, thank you for sending in the video. Again, you can scan the QR code. You can send in your photos and videos to WFLA.com/report it. Wow, that came through pretty loud. This is, let's see here, Skyanne, flooding in southeast Cape Coral by City Hall at 1:15, Justin.
Yeah, 1:15 in the afternoon, and we've got hours to go before landfall. And as I mentioned, it's not going to just end at the point of landfall. We still have a backside of the storm, although looking at the satellite and radar, it does look a little bit better. From a standpoint of rain, the drier air is really doing a job on this particular storm. And just checking on the latest advisory on the numbers here. Top winds were at 130.
Why don't we just go full screen of Wobble Tracker really quickly and just kind of show the movement of the storm?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, right on that line, making that wobbling turn northeast. And Justin, this does not bode well for your area of Sarasota.
It doesn't. It appears to take. It's going to take the brunt of the storm, which we are concerned about the eye wall. That's the strongest portion of the hurricane, and the northeastern quadrant, relative to the forward motion, is the worst side of the storm. We've had numerous tornado warnings in that portion of the viewing area from Inglewood and Venice through Sarasota, Bradenton, Inland, and Lakewood Ranch. And now we're starting to see those warnings taking place further inland as those bands are getting a lot stronger and a lot heavier. It's a big concern for the southern parts of the area this
we have
evening.
A great sign here. This is from Preston and Clearwater.
Very popular place there.
You ever been?
I've never been past, but I've heard a lot over my time here in the Bay Area.
Let's go and hang out. We should. Preston and Clearwater sending this in. We are open till the letters fly off of this sign.
My goodness.
I hope that they close before that. I don't think that you should wait till the letters fly off, but clearly the signage that got Preston's attention and sent in to WFLA.com/reported. We've been talking about Arcadia, okay? This is Southeast Arcadia, DeSoto County. And this is, look, I'll explain why this is of tremendous benefit to us and our audience. We have crews stationed in a lot of different places. We have not been able to get to many areas of DeSoto County. So here you can see heavy rainfall. Here you can see some of that, that water that is starting to pool. And this was an area that we were honed in on for tornado warnings earlier, Justin, because Arcadia has seen at least one tornado warning, perhaps even more than that in that area.
Yeah, it's really what you're looking at is inside of one of the rain bands, and this is just one of the outer bands associated with the storm. And you'll get a break for the inland areas. I'm just looking at the radar right now, and in between those bands, the weather will be breezy, it will be gusty, but it's really inside of these squalls where you have to watch out for that risk of tornadoes and, of course, the heavier downpours. And those tropical rains, the big reds that we typically see on the radar, help to transport higher winds that are aloft down to the ground. So it's a quick burst of wind. And you know what I'm talking about when those squalls come through. Things get extremely turbulent for a short period of time as those storms do move across the area. But looking at the latest advisory there, top winds are at 130 miles per hour, minimum central pressure 944, and the motion north-northeast at 16. Again, the forecast track with the forecast cone error still includes portions of Tampa Bay, but with the guidance that we have, you can see most of it clustering over Manatee, Sarasota, and Charlotte counties. And judging by what we can see with our radar, that's going up according to plan. So the core of this system, that's what we're most concerned about, is going to be working its way into Manatee and Sarasota counties for tonight. All preparations should be completed. If you haven't done that, they should be rushed to completion because tropical storm force winds are already impacting portions of the Suncoast and pushing northward into the Bay Area. So again, 125 mile per hour winds, that's the potential at landfall. And again, that clustering of the models increases the forecast confidence. We look at what we can call the consensus model, which has been pretty persistent with portions of Manatee and Sarasota counties. So again, we're just got to ride this one out. Hopefully everybody is in their safe place at this point in time, JB.
All right, let's look at Wobble Tracker here really quickly if we can. And
this is critical.
Yeah, this is a really helpful tool. This is streaming all the time on WFLA.com. Coming back to it because note where it starts on the bottom of your screen versus where it ends up, and you can use those latitude, longitude lines to really get an idea as to which direction it's traveling in.
That is correct. And the red line that you see, that is the forecast track, the official track from the National Hurricane Center. A hurricane doesn't follow a line. It does wobble, thus our wobble tracker. I like to think of it, if you trace a person's steps when they're walking, they're just general walking. No one walks in an exact straight line. So this thing will be wobbling, and we'll be monitoring that with the wobble tracker, and every little bit does count. If we see a wobble a little further to the north, that could increase the storm surge risk into Tampa Bay. So it's going to be critical over the next several hours to see exactly where that core decides to come on shore here along the west coast of the state. And that's why our team of meteorologists here will be monitoring that on air, online here as well. And it's the job that we have to get that core on shore. And again, we will be able to dictate the highest storm surge values at the coast.
All right, so we're going to try to bring in a third member of the team here, everybody. Stand by, because we're going to make a FaceTime call and see if this person picks up. Hopefully that they do, and see if everything is still working to the point where we can actually FaceTime somebody into the stream center. And it looks like we do have everybody. Let's bring in here live, joining us, News Nation's Brian Enton. Brian, how are you doing? Checking in with you, my friend.
Hey, doing pretty good. Just out here on Bayshore Drive, so not far from you. Yeah, just trying to stay dry. We've been outside doing our live shots for News Nation. It's starting to get a little more active out here. Nothing too crazy, but there was a pretty strong little squall that just came through a little while ago.
All right, so Brian, you know where I'm going with this because we have up photos here of the gentleman by the name of Joseph Malinowski, who has been referred to as Lieutenant Dan on social media. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor saying that Lieutenant Dan was evacuated off of his boat in Tampa. You've been stationed in that area. You're not too far away from our station. What is the latest with this story? Can you take us through it, please?
Yeah, so he definitely has not been evacuated or gone to a shelter, which was kind of weird because we were listening to the mayor's press conference in our ear, and I heard her say that he was no longer on the boat and was at a shelter, and we were standing right outside his boat, and he is still on the boat, and he's not leaving. He doesn't want to leave. I don't know. I think maybe he agreed yesterday that he was going to leave or told some police that, but he has definitely changed his mind. And he's in there right now. I mean, I saw his little hand sticking out a little while ago. He kind of like pops his head out every couple minutes, but you know, he says he's gonna stay, which is kind of scary for sure.
Why do you think this story has picked up such significant attention? Is it just the nature of TikTok to pick up a story like this and for it to just kind of explode from there? Is it a microcosm perhaps for Florida? And do people identify a lot of Florida stubbornness perhaps with Joseph's refusal to kind of leave the area? What do you think it is about this story that has really caused it to gain such traction?
Well, I think people are worried about him. I mean, he's missing a leg, and you can't help but just worry for the guy. And he also seems to be a very nice guy, and his sort of story has just gone viral. I didn't even realize it. My friend, I didn't even know. I didn't even know much about him, but I was getting all these texts like, "Oh, you're in Tampa. Can you please go check on Lieutenant Dan?" And I was like, "Oh my God, who's Lieutenant Dan?" I didn't even know where he was, and we were looking at his TikToks. I'm like, "Oh, he's right by where the pirate ship normally is."
Yep.
So we just went over there, and I think people just are worried about him. The only thing I will say, you don't realize when you look at the videos on TikTok, but I mean, that area, JB. He's docked right there near downtown. So, and that's what I told him. I'm like, if it gets really bad, like he can get off the boat. Hopefully he would do that. And even just kind of run across the street. There's some buildings there and like a parking garage. So I'm hoping that, if it starts to really pick up right there, he could just get off. And we came down here a little ways. We're a couple miles down now, but we're going to go back and check on him. I was just telling my producer, like, we kind of want to go back every couple hours and just like see how he's doing over there.
Okay, so yeah, talk me through. I mean, you're obviously covering Hurricane Milton for News Nation as their senior national correspondent. Take me through where you're going to be focusing in on. Obviously, you checked in on Lieutenant Dan here and hoping that everything turns out okay for him. The latest, models that we're showing, of course, show that this is making a turn more towards Sarasota. That doesn't mean that Tampa Bay is really out of this by any capacity. There's still going to be surge, just not the catastrophic, unsurvivable surge that we've been talking about being a possibility for several days now. So I think it's safe to say that Joseph here is still in for significant impacts in the area. But where are you going to be focusing in on? What's the plan for you and your team?
Yeah, so we're just staying in Tampa right now. We were debating moving south. Maybe going to Bradenton, but I think right now we're going to stay in Tampa. I mean, it's, I was just looking at the radar. I mean, you have a better look than I do, but it looks like there's quite a bit coming our way here in Tampa pretty soon, kind of on the north side of the storm. So we're just kind of waiting to see what happens. I mean, we've been live on News Nation every hour, and we're just kind of, we're wet, and we're sitting in the car very wet. I'm about to take off my wet socks here in a minute. and let my feet dry off. And we're just, we're just taking it in at the moment, hoping that everything's going to be okay. Worried about, I'm a Floridian. I hope that it goes. I mean, I don't want bad things happen to Sarasota, obviously, but it seems like Tampa may have really dodged a bullet here.
It's certainly looking like the type of, doomsday scenario, which was the worst case scenario for Tampa. We're not out of it yet, but based on the current trends, things are following the NHC's track from the 5 o'clock advisory yesterday, Brian, which was the notable shift outside of Tampa Bay and more to Anna Maria Island and south from there. So, you know me, I'm unpredictable. Why don't we? Who's in the car there with you? You want to share who you're actually
Lauren, do you
there
want to
with?
be on? Sure. Okay, Lauren, this is her big moment.
Hi, Lauren.
Say hi, Lauren. Hi. What do you? She actually lived in Tampa. So, what do you think about what's going on?
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be really bad. I was actually in Gulfport. I used to live in Gulfport, Florida, a while back, and that devastation after Helene was awful.
Sorry, I'm turning it the wrong way. Yeah, there you go.
And and I think while I don't think people should be at ease by any means, with this turning a little bit, because I grew up in hurricanes, and this is still going to be a bad one, I think.
Well, Lauren, I know that all the work you're doing behind the scenes. Just know that you're just always shouting out all the folks behind the camera as well as on camera itself. Anyone else you want to shout out, Brian? And I'll ask you a couple more questions. We'll get you out of here too.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Luis, our cameraman. He's in the car behind me. He's the best. And we're just, it's just I just can't believe that we're out here and you're in the suit. I mean, you don't even wear like a weather outfit for a day like today, JB. You still wear the suit.
It's not going to last much longer, Brian. I'm getting out of this here soon.
I was thinking maybe like a weather polo, something to just kind of reflect the moment. But you're in the suit,
Brian.
We have room in our car.
Yeah, we have room here if you want to come out.
Join us.
It wouldn't be my first time doing storm coverage, and there is a part of me that would like to be in the car with you guys just to experience this a little bit. But of course, you know me, I'm here pressing buttons. Brian, I can't look good in everything. You look good in no matter what you wear, shirt and tie, polo, or the jacket. As far as two more questions I want to ask before I get you out of here. You and I both love this state. We love the state of Florida. Hurricanes are prevalent. This is part of what people have signed up for. In talking to people in your assignment, I know you were in Gulfport yesterday with you and your team, and now talking to people today. What is your sense of how are people taking this storm seriously? Because in previous instances with hurricanes and tropical storms in Florida, there's sort of been this, we've been through worse in the past. And then people will rattle off names of storms from Charlie to Irma to Ian, and then they say everything's going to be fine. Are you getting that sense from people out there, or do you think that people are taking this storm seriously?
I think they are. I mean, especially like in Gulfport yesterday. I know Gulfport's kind of the place where you get some of those like kind of old Florida people that, ride out the storms. And I got the sense overall that people were leaving. And I think part of it was because of Helene. Like they had so much damage out there. There's still so much debris everywhere. There was so much flooding. I think people are just kind of worn out. Like, gosh, they went through hell with Helene and they just realized, I don't want to do that again. So, and even when we were driving over from Miami on Alligator Alley a couple days ago, the traffic was insane going east. Everybody was leaving. So I get the feeling that people are taking it seriously this time. I really do.
All right. I'll get you out of here on this. You and I are both animal lovers, and just an opportunity for us to both really quickly talk about how our pets are so important, and just animals in general are so important. When we're talking about a hurricane or a tropical storm impacting the area, I have an outdoor pet that I brought in this morning and flooded with treats, making sure that smiles abound. I know that you've seen some animals out and about. I saw your tweet from earlier, and so just a reminder to everybody out there: bring in your pets, bring in animals, do your very best, because what Brian tweeted out a short time ago was really heartbreaking to see. Brian.
Yeah, it's that awful video. Someone tied a dog up along a fence along I-75, and FHP went and saved the dog. But it really just, I tweeted it, like, made my blood boil. But yeah, I mean, you just feel for people and for pets. That's one thing, like, I'm worried about Lieutenant Dan, but I also wanted to make sure he didn't have an animal, just because, like, that's a lot of those, like, sailboat people I've found will have, like, a dog or a cat on there. And not that I'm not worried about Lieutenant Dan, like, but sometimes the animals, they can't get off themselves or whatever. So luckily he said he didn't have a dog on there. I checked. But yeah, anybody who has an animal, now is definitely the time to bring them inside for sure.
News Nation's Brian Enton and team Lauren and Lou there.
Hey, can you
well?
explain something to me, JB, real quick?
Yeah,
Then I have to go do this live shot.
anything.
So we're by the bay right now,
Yep.
along Bayshore, and it looks like the water is like going down. Like,
Yes.
is it going to suck the water out?
Do you want to know what it's going to look like, Brian? I'm going to show you some video here. You're not going to believe this. Oh no, actually, I loaded up the video from Lieutenant Dan, but let me explain what you're in for. So there is a phenomenon that occurs that when a hurricane hits south of Tampa Bay, all the water gets sucked out of it. It happened during Hurricane Ian. I'll try to rack up some of that video. I don't know if I can while I have you here on FaceTime, but because the storm, as of right now, is rotating the way that it is and moving south of Tampa Bay rather than north, the winds are going to be rotating in a way that it's going to be pushing all the water out of Tampa Bay. So if you're already seeing the bay get lowered, that's a trend that we expect to continue and continue significantly in the hours ahead. So keep an eye on Tampa Bay because...
So will there be surge here? Like, does the water come back in and surge?
There will still be surge in certain spots in the Tampa Bay area, depending, of course, on the elevation and some other spots and some other factors. But the bay itself, kind of like draining a bathtub, there's going to be this effect where you're going to see the water come down. And that's
so interesting.
Yeah, Brian, I'll tell you, look up what happened to Tampa Bay on your phone during Hurricane Ian, and you'll see that phenomenon that occurs.
Okay.
If the storm were to move north, all that water does the opposite. It rushes into the bay. So, yeah, you're watching it happen in real time, my friend.
I'm gonna go check it out. All right, good to see you, JB.
Good to see you, Brian. News Nation's Brian Enton on every hour, everybody here on News Nation. Good to see a friend. And Justin, we'll bring it back in here. Talking about this storm. Yeah, he's already seeing the water levels come down a bit in Tampa Bay. Further proof that the storm is getting close and whipping those waters out of the bay itself.
Correct. It's about the wind and the circulation about the storm. So when you have an offshore wind blowing out of the bay, it moves the water out of the bay. Once the storm gets a little closer, and again, depending upon that exact track, as you mentioned, JB, we will know if the surge is going to enter Tampa Bay. The way things are looking right now, the center point is still forecast to come in just south of Tampa Bay itself, along the Sun Coast, Manatee, Sarasota counties. And it would be at that point in points to the south where we'd see a surge potentially of 10, 12 feet across the southern portions of the Tampa Bay area.
All right, so let's show everybody the real-time updates with the real-time wobble tracker. Last scans coming in at 2:40 and 2:50 Eastern, and it's almost directly on this line. Which is fascinating to follow here because
the Hurricane Center does a great job with their track forecast,
especially this close to a landfall event, right? We have a lot of model consensus now. The spaghetti models have shown that, but this turn is not just a series of wobbles anymore. We're noticing this turn happening in real time.
We are, and that's why we have this wobble tracker. It really shows it, like you mentioned, real time, and that core, that's what we're following. Looks like we may be getting a new image in, is the eye wall, that northeastern portion of the storm. That's where the 130-mile-per-hour winds would be found. And the reconnaissance aircraft will continue to fly this storm as long as it is offshore. And we are also able to use the land-based Doppler radar to scan the skies and get a handle on the wind field as well. Not at the surface, but aloft, and that can be extrapolated down to the ground. So as the system gets closer, we'll be able to keep it under surveillance from this point across the state and well out into the Atlantic Ocean as well, because those effects will be far-reaching, not only here across the Bay Area, but much of the state of Florida. Here's a live view outside overlooking the Skyway Bridge in angry Tampa Bay. You can see the white caps on the bay. Definitely the camera being buffeted around by the tropical storm force winds.
Are we between bands here if there's not a lot of rainfall occurring on this particular
correct.
shot? Yep.
That is in between a rain band. So that's just the pure tropical storm force winds, not even associated with the gusty, turbulent conditions associated with those rain bands.
So looking here, again, let's go back to WFLA.com/report it and show what is coming in across the viewing area. You can send in your photos and videos to WFLA.com/report it. Just a reminder, if you do so, please do so as safely and as responsibly as possible. We showed this one earlier from Preston. We'll continue on in the queue. I think we have to skip a couple here because we did see this one from Samantha. We did see this one in Northport from Andrew. Let's show. We did show this from. Did we show this from David? I don't think so. This one is new.
It doesn't look like it. So they can see that the water is already starting to kind of pool up. This is Northport, southern portions and inland portions of Sarasota County. Dealt with a lot of flooding in the past with numerous storms, tropical systems that have moved through that region.
Wow, Jamie, I think caught the tornado here in northern Clewiston, Florida.
Okay.
That appears to be what has been described as that wedge-shaped tornado that we were talking about earlier.
Yes,
yeah, that is the stuff of nightmares right there.
I saw that tornado warning come out, and man, that's impressive video.
Again, only showing this because she's at a safe distance.
Exactly.
Do not. I don't have to tell people this, right? I shouldn't have to tell people this. Do not go in the direction of a tornado with your phone to capture a photo or video. But yes, this is at a safe distance. We can show this on stream. Next up, we've got the Gandy Bridge from Raymond on the the St. Pete side. Let's listen in. Yeah, so clearly water coming up on the Gandy as to be expected with this type of storm.
Correct, and we will see a water level rise during the period of high tide. I know that we were mentioning that the surge will be a lot less if the center of the storm stays to the south, but we'll be monitoring that in Tampa Bay. This is from Venice?
Yes, Venice, Florida, from Heather. Sending away Milton, or trying to with her kids.
That's
says,
the idea.
Go away, Milton.
We would all like that.
Thank you for sending this in. We really appreciate it. This is Juan from Pembroke's Pines,
South Florida.
Broward County, even Broward County, experiencing impacts. You can hear some of the impacts here. Winds beginning to whip up. Continuing on in the queue, flooding on La Villa Avenue in Northport. Oh, look at that. They added the timestamp, whether that's Snapchat or Instagram. That's very helpful. Thank you. Nico on La Villa Avenue in Northport sending out this flooded street. We really appreciate it. Sarasota, Mayaka State Park apparently receiving already, according to Zachary, in eastern Sarasota County, 6 inches of rain.
And a lot more is to come. Although I will say the model data as of late, again, indicating the heaviest rain, the highest totals north of the storm center. So that would be around Tampa Bay and points to the north along the Nature Coast. We're talking about Pasco, Hernando, up into Citrus counties and inland towards the Orlando metro area. But everybody will have these squalls moving through this afternoon. Here we are at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock as we are continuing with Tracking the Tropics here with JB.
All right, continuing on here, looking at some more submissions on WFLA.com/report it. Wow, time lapse. This is great, Jim. Thanks for sending this in. Time lapse from the Nest camera. So downloaded this time lapse, and what are we seeing here, Justin?
Wow, look at those clouds kind of rolling in. Incredible stuff. Different layers of the atmosphere you can see with the wind. I'm not sure exactly which direction the camera is pointed, but keep in mind clouds are just visible moisture, and the atmosphere is moisture laden right now. So again, we are all under a flood watch across the entire Tampa Bay area. And as these bans become a lot more frequent, flooding will become a lot more of an issue for parts of the area.
All right, Safety Harbor is up next. This is from Mark.
Safety Harbor spot directly on Tampa Bay. And you can clearly see, well, at least I can here, water moving south towards the causeway. The last one on the right being about 3 feet deep here on the foundation. And then Safety Harbor.
Thank you, Mark, for sending that in. And yeah, he says, I'm adjacent to Safety Harbor Resort and Spa, Upper Tampa Bay, looking at the water. Thank you for sending that in, Mark. That's super helpful. Again, another great weather report. Just be safe out there, folks. Adam says that this is Southgate, Sarasota, residential flooding. That's a front yard underwater already.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Next up in the queue, we have a shot of what appears to, wow, look at that. Off in the distance. This is one of the tornadoes that have been confirmed to have touched down. This is Montoura, Florida, Hendry County. We don't even, I don't think we have a crew anywhere remotely close to this spot. So this is a
down
super
around Lake
helpful tool.
Okeechobee. Yeah.
Yep. Let's.
Right now, connecting really the northernmost extent of Collier County. So right now.
Yeah, and listening to some news coverage there in the background. This is from Gelmir. Thank you, Gelmir, for sending this in. Let's go to Davis Islands. Small surge already coming in from the east.
Behind it, we're wrapping around the storm. So you can see it's coming in from the sea from the Harbor Island side.
Wow. So already Davis Island's located right in the heart of Tampa Bay. So already seeing impacts there.
Very low lying, and that is to be expected, along with Harbor Island as well.
All right. And last one in the queue for now, Kelsey sending in this wind and rain in St. Pete. Wow, look at how heavy this is. Yeah. In a non-evacuation zone. She's at 40 feet of elevation, she says.
Which is unusual in Pinellas County. Not a whole lot of that.
You can see that she's kind of sticking her phone out real quick. Oh yeah, look at the stop sign. I mean, yeah, that's torrential rain and significant wind gusts coming in. Kelsey, thank you so much for sending that in. We really appreciate it. We've got live reporters standing by. We're going to be going to them here momentarily. Justin, any update coming down? Oh, yeah, we do have the 3 o'clock update. Max wind speeds 130 miles an hour.
Correct. So at this point, the National Hurricane Center will give us new updates hourly now. As the storm is getting closer to land, they'll update the position. We'll get a new forecast track tonight at 5 o'clock. That's simply because of the new model data that is coming in. But at this point, it's more of a nowcasting where we kind of babysit the radar, keep an eye on the wobble tracker as the core of the storm will be moving onshore. So if we are our listeners and viewers down in Manatee and Sarasota counties, this is going to be a really rough go of it. If you haven't experienced a hurricane, it's going to be a scary night. I talked to a lot of folks down there, and we have so many people that have just moved to the Tampa Bay area here along the Sun Coast and really just don't know what to expect. This is going to be a very difficult night, JP.
What I just, it's interesting. I was curious if the NHC was going to issue an advisory of some kind. Look at how close this is to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it really is.
So the track right now, from a speed and an arrival time perspective, is just flat out wrong. Based on all the math that we've been doing, our entire weather team here at WFLA, predicting this to make landfall in the next 5 to 6 hours. So, the idea that the storm is going to be Wednesday, 8 o'clock p.m., there would have to be a massive slowdown to occur for that to be. And the factors, according to Jeff and the team, Justin, the factors for that slowdown just really aren't there.
Well, it's being picked up by the jet stream, and it's accelerating the storm. And this is good news when it comes to getting the storm in and out sooner. But as I mentioned earlier, the rainfall amounts will be lessened due to this forward motion of the storm. And that's critical. We want it to get out of here quickly, but it also is maintaining its strength, currently a Category 4. Forecast to decrease in intensity as it does move onshore. And that's simply because of the dry air intrusion. Water temperatures just off of our coastline aren't quite as warm as what the system dealt with out over the open waters of the Gulf. So again, an incredible radar image that we're watching here. On the Max Defender radar, and the center of the storm may be trying to broaden out. So with a larger eye, it could, in theory, go over the southern portions of Tampa Bay. So it's going to be very interesting to watch the radar trends as this storm does move onshore. The thinking right now, again, down that center line, yet you see Manatee, Sarasota counties, but again, that window of possible movement, the forecast cone still does include southern portions of Tampa Bay. So we caution everybody, we're in the midst of dealing with a hurricane. The onslaught is underway, and everybody should be definitely hunkering down, as really the core is not all that far away from our southern communities of Manatee and Sarasota.
All right, we'll continue to monitor progress of the storm. Let's check Wobble Tracker. Haven't checked that full screen in a bit. Recent scans as of 3 o'clock. And yeah,
it's right on. It
right
is
on it.
right on. And again, the concern now, look at those heavy red bands that you see, what we call rain bands, spiral rain bands, spiral into the storm. That's where those tornado warnings are coming from. We've had that those numerous tornado signatures, that scallop nature that we see. And our team is on the air on WFLA right now, covering each one of those tornado warnings using the advantage of our Max Defender radar. And that's what we'll have to deal with for tonight. The active tornado warnings, the increase in the sustained winds, the tropical storm force winds will become hurricane force winds. And wherever that core does make landfall, which we do think it will be Manatee and Sarasota, your winds may actually stop during the center of the storm. That's the eye. And we encourage people, a lot of folks want to go out in it, but you really should continue to hunker in and stay in place, and before the backside of the storm will begin to move onshore. But this is happening, and it's not something we're waiting on any longer. It's underway at this point in time.
All right. Here live with the WFLA.com/Wobble Tracker. Very, very helpful tool. We're trying to bring in some live reporters here as well and trying to get them involved in the live stream. Let's get you back to the most recent updates from the NHC. Wow. Hold on a moment. Those are going to cycle back here in a moment, but the spaghettis have come together. We've gotten in new model runs on the spaghetti models, folks, and I want you to see the most recent spaghetti models. And they might have been flashing on screen for the last several minutes, and I might have missed it, but I just caught it. And I want everyone to look here at the spaghetti models because we have way more model consensus, as to be expected. The storm is basically knocking on our front door, if not plowing its way through the front door. But look at that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's all over Sarasota.
It is. And that's exactly what we look for. We look for that grouping. And if you think back a day or two ago, what we were up against as forecasters.
Hold that thought 1 second,
sure,
Justin.
Absolutely.
We've got Jeff Patterson.
Gotcha.
Yes, we are in the Max Defender 8 Storm Chaser vehicle. We have now left I-4 and are on the Solomon Expressway. I just want to give you a look outside because we have seen some pretty interesting conditions right now. Has been strong. We have seen incredibly hard rain. Normally you would be able to see downtown Tampa out of the camera that is pointed ahead, but right now it is raining so hard you can't even see that far. So a couple of things we have observed. Thankfully, most people are staying off the roads. We have seen a couple of automobile accidents up on I-4 for people who were getting out and trying to drive around. So the conditions are very dangerous. You have to be really careful when you're driving outside. Up ahead, as you may be able to see, that should be just the downtown buildings, but it's raining very hard outside right now, and we are still hours away from the major part of Hurricane Milton. So thankfully, as I said, people are staying inside. We did pass by the state fairgrounds where we saw a huge pile of debris that is up, and we are keeping a close eye on that to make sure it doesn't blow across the interstate. So we'll keep an eye on things out here. We are going to settle to a location soon to be safe and to bring you the best coverage possible. But for now, Jeff Patterson, 8 on your side. Back to you guys.
All right, out there in the Storm Chaser doing his job. Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate that. And of course, to ensure.
And Jeff Patterson, our chat lighting up, shouting out Jeff because he's our veteran storm chaser / storm journalist, and he was with us in Helene, Ian, Irma.
He's seen it all.
He's seen a lot of storms hitting the state, so we're going to be tapping in. I think we're going to try to bring him onto the show here, but let's go back and listen into Brittany Muller, Manatee County.
Track holds as it is now.
It really is, and that's the major concern out here, especially from the public safety director, Jody Fisk. She says wherever you are now is where you should be riding out Hurricane Milton because the weather is only going to be deteriorating. You could see we're in one of those lulls right now. The rain bands have been pushing throughout the day. Right now, we're getting some wind gusts, light rain, but it's been on and off and heavier. It was this morning, and right now, the major concern is about those debris piles from Hurricane Helene. They're still out there. We saw when driving around massive piles of debris. We're talking about furniture and mattresses, steel, kitchen cabinets that are all on the side of the street because people had to remove and gut their homes because they got 4 or 5 feet of water inside. And so now that's a concern because those items could become projectiles. So Manatee County says it's removed at least 10 million pounds of debris ahead of this storm. So we're out here monitoring the conditions, and hopefully you're in a safe place. And that's the message from county leaders at this point. County leaders also say they've been fielding calls from residents. They've been receiving at least 5,000 calls everywhere from sandbags or shelters. We do know at least 16 shelters are open in the county. And when we were driving around at 10 a.m. this morning, more elementary schools were opening as we arrived on site because the need is so great out here. People are taking advantage of those evacuation orders and they're moving inland into a safe place. And that's what we like to see. People's lives are at risk. We've heard it from local officials. And so people are heeding those warnings and taking this storm very seriously. For now, reporting live in Manatee County, Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
Thanks, Brittany. And although Polk County is definitely inland, emergency management, they're expecting lakes and rivers to rise. They're also going to feel a lot of rain and a lot of wind.
Well, you got wind, you're going to have down trees. In fact, Jeff and Rebecca just a moment ago talking about a tornado warning that was there, so we know tornadoes are a factor. News Channel 8's Georgia MacArthur is joining us live from that location in Polk County, keeping tabs on things there. So what are you seeing, Georgia?
Hey, Keith and Stacy, I am getting hit with the rain back to back. The rain is starting to pick up here in Polk County, as well as the wind gusts within the last half hour. Like our Max 8 Defender meteorologist said, there were a couple possible tornadoes in the East Polk area. Now, we are here at this nearby hotel plaza where we've seen quite a few evacuees. I spoke to a man who says he left from Pinellas County after, hearing from what happened in Helene. He said he didn't want to take any chances when it came to Milton. So we spoke to a lot of people here. This hotel nearby is full, as a lot of the hotels throughout the county. The rain's still starting to pick up here, and we know flooding and the strong winds is a very possible concern. But it seems like much of Polk County is taking this weather very seriously and staying indoors. Reporting live in Polk County, I'm Georgia MacArthur, 8 on your side.
All right, thank you, Georgia.
All right, so that was a look into our newscast on WFLA News Channel 8. Back with the Wobble Tracker. And folks, if you haven't seen this, if you haven't been monitoring this on your computer, or your tablet, or your phone at home, and there's an update there. This is the trend that we have been watching. Earlier, Justin, I was talking a little bit about the snaking effect, and you see it there on the blue line on your screen, that this was slithering in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, your Chuck, it's funny, Justin's laughing, but I'm not a meteorologist, Justin is, so that's my word, slithering through the Gulf, not a meteorological term, but it does accurately, kind of portray what we have been seeing. And even if you take the Wobble Tracker south, there's even more slithering back and forth that occurred. North, then northeast. North, then northeast. And it slithered its way. Now, if this holds, is this... well, you know what? At this point, we're just so far into this, I'm just going to keep with this whole snaking thing. Has the snake stopped slithering, so to speak? Are we continuing this northeast trend in the hours ahead? Because any wobbles off this track now could have significant impacts for the Gulf Coast side of Florida, the Tampa Bay region.
Absolutely. We're going to watch that snaking, as you call it, JP.
Yes, thank you.
closely because any wobble or deviation to the north, in particular for Tampa Bay, we're talking Pinellas and Hillsborough counties, that will really have an influence on the storm surge. And that has been our chief concern, is that amount of water that we will see getting into the bay.
Oh, really quickly, I'm sorry, Justin, I want to interrupt. We have our backup location up and running. Let's listen in.
12 to 18 inches of rain, and that's going to start, it's starting right now, but the heaviest rain starting 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and then all the way through about the midnight hour once this gets out of here. So a lot of rainfall rates, 3 inches an hour. Yeah, it's going to be heavy.
And I know you back in Tampa and downtown at WFLA have talked about the timing of all this. For our friends there, it will start, 7, 8 o'clock. It's going to get really heavy.
I mean, it's looking like a landfall around 7, 8 o'clock right there in Sarasota County. And, of course, we're to the north. But still, that doesn't mean we're not going to get the rain and winds.
Okay, well, we have a small, compact crew here, kind of holding down the fort, so to speak, here in this hotel up in Wesley Chapel, just off of I-75. Weather not too bad right now. We're just making sure all the systems are in place. So if you need us, we're here. Hopefully you won't, but everything hopefully is well back there in downtown Tampa. We wish you all well, to be safe for our entire crew, and we will be here when you need us. So for now, we'll send it right back to you in the studio.
All right, the same to you both. Thank you.
Wow. So Eric did make it safely, obviously, to Wesley Chapel. Not that he was ever going to have any problems. He probably flew up there with the roads being largely empty. Right. But a shout out just to the WFLA production crew that have moved heaven and earth to get a backup location up and going in Wesley Chapel. It'll be interesting to check in. Oh, we might have an update on Lieutenant Dan, apparently.
Went to evacuate and is actually riding out the hurricane inside his boat. Listen.
I'm worried about, everybody wants me to get off the boat, tied up to the cleat on the dock there, and it's secured to the concrete, which is secured to all this thing. I have a secured anchor point.
I mean, it's hard to even hear what he's saying because of the wind, right? He says he's actually not concerned and is anchored right by Bayshore Boulevard. Well, he should be concerned. This is exactly what you shouldn't do. If you recall, just yesterday, Mayor Jane Castor issued a dire warning telling people that if you stay in your evacuation area, you are going to die. I mean, this guy is literally riding out the storm inside his boat. Well, let's show you some other videos that we got from viewers.
Yeah, no, they're going through the same reported stuff that we had up earlier. Yeah, it's with the story that became the whole Lieutenant Dan thing. And again, Joseph is his real name. Joseph was thought to be evacuated because Tampa Mayor Jane Castor said that he had evacuated from his boat. Clearly, that is not the case. That is a story that has gone viral on TikTok, I'm told. I'm not. Are you on TikTok?
I am not.
I'm not on. Well, I'm on it, but I'm not on it.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't use it all that much. Yeah, there was a time when we were doing some stuff for news on my WFLA JB TikTok account. I haven't checked it in a very long time. Mm-hmm. Maybe I have followers there. Maybe I don't. Maybe there is.
You do, JB.
Maybe there are great videos that are. I'm sure there are. TikTok is a vibrant place. I think vibrant's a fair word. But I'm unfamiliar with the massive TikTok sort of story that has become Lieutenant Dan, but we can confirm that he is still there in his boat, not listening to evacuation orders. Again, that's not flood zone A, B, or C. That is flood zone like 0. I don't even know if that technically even falls on in the flood zone area. But look, if you're in that area, if you're Lieutenant Dan, you got to get out of there, because even though there has been favorable developments with the track, Justin,
yes,
Tampa is still going to see significant impact from the storm. Just look at radar here. Do you see everything on the north side of the storm? Look at that right there. See the north side?
Yeah.
That's heading for southern Tampa Bay, and might be heading directly for where Lieutenant Dan is going. Might be heading directly where we're located in downtown Tampa.
And that is a concern. That's one of the reasons we have our backup location that we just heard from Josh and Eric there in Wesley Chapel. And the station has done an excellent job. That was a point that you made earlier. I mean, you have to, if you're our viewers at home, to think about trying to move a television station, the undertaking that involves. Really, our hats off to our chief engineer here, our news director, and general manager for putting that plan in place. And it's all to keep us safe here at the TV station, and so we can continue to broadcast to our viewers and keep everybody informed as this dangerous storm is now moving into the Suncoast region. So as we look at the track,
I want to show you here something really quickly, Justin, because on the line we have from the Max Defender 8 Storm vehicle driving in an unknown location. Let's bring in News Channel 8's Jeff Patterson. Jeff, that shot you just had showed the Max Defender 8 camera on top of your vehicle shaking quite a bit. Where are you joining us from, and how are you, my friend?
Good evening, JB. We are doing just fine. We just came off of Interstate 4. We drove past the State Fairgrounds and are now heading onto Bayshore Boulevard. I'll take you outside. I am starting to see a lot of water come down to the Bayshore, and it is not completely impassable at this time, but I would strongly urge people to stay off the roads. One thing I will tell you, JB, that I'm seeing, take a look at these homes over here, some of the beautiful mansions along Bayshore Boulevard. In all of my years, all of the years that I've reported at Channel 8, I have never seen the homes on Bayshore boarded up before a hurricane. At least I cannot recall it. And I saw this yesterday, people preparing, to get ready for this storm, boarding up these beautiful homes. And of course, several of them during Hurricane Helene suffered damage along the Bayshore. We saw a lot of storm debris, piled up on the curb. An amazing thing that we saw about an hour and a half ago is that there was a crew from the city of Tampa out with a debris collection vehicle, picking up the storm debris so that it would hopefully not become projectiles during this weather event. I'm going to have to use the windshield wiper on top of the camera here. Because you can see now that the water, just from the rain, this isn't from the storm surge, this is just from the enormous amount of rain that we've been getting in downtown Tampa today. It's starting to come down the hill and starting to really kind of overwhelm the storm sewer system here along the Bayshore. But just take a look at that. All of these homes that don't have the impact-resistant windows have wisely elected to board up. And so people have been preparing here. The sad thing is a lot of the people who are on Davis Islands and other low-lying areas haven't even recovered from Helene yet. I know people who live on Davis Islands who have been working very diligently, very hard to clear out their home from all of the saturated items from Hurricane Helene. They've been cutting their drywall, getting rid of those things from inside of their home that have been collecting because of the damage that unfortunately they suffered during Hurricane Helene. And now here we go again. It's kind of a 1-2 gut punch, if you will, to the people who live here. The other thing I can tell you is that I do personally know people who did not evacuate during Hurricane Helene who are now out of their homes and on the road, or hopefully to the location that they were going to go to. I know people who headed south to the Miami area. I know people who headed north to Georgia to get out of harm's way. I have to say, I believe that's a wise decision, especially with the strength that we are seeing from Milton. So a lot going on here, and we are headed to a location ourselves to get you good coverage and yet stay safe. But you can just tell, thankfully, there's very few people out on the Bayshore right now, JB.
Hey there, Jeff. This is Justin Mosley back here at the station, and just had a quick question for you. I know I can see your camera driving along Bayshore there, and what an incredible image. So famous for the flooding that goes on with these storms every single time. But are you noticing any a drop in the water levels in Tampa Bay? I know you've seen a lot of that over the years covering the storms here at News Channel 8.
No, I have not seen, and I know what you're talking about. It depends on where exactly this eye wall goes over us. I know friends who walked out, onto the mud after the water got drawn out of Old Tampa Bay. I would strongly suggest that is not necessarily a wise decision because, the water goes out, but the water can come back in really rapidly. It's really muddy out there. You don't want to get stuck in a mud hole in, Old Tampa Bay when that water comes back in. So still seeing a good deal of water out in the bay right now along the Bayshore. We are not seeing waves crash over the balustrade as we have seen in other storms yet, but of course we are hours away from the major intensity from Hurricane Milton. So, you know, just beginning to see the downed tree branches and street flooding and things like that here. Again, I really admire the crew from the city of Tampa that was out collecting that storm debris, you know, doing everything they could up until the last minute here in preparation for this really powerful hurricane.
Hey, Jeff, it's JB here. First, I want to give a shout out to who's ever driving the vehicle, always giving a shout out to our crews behind the scenes as well. If it might be, is it Joey?
It is Joey Capistran, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who has been with me now for a number of these hurricanes. Joey does an incredible job, and I feel very confident and very safe with Joey driving this vehicle, and we'll feel confident and safe when we are standing out in it as we get to our location here. But we just thought we'd bring you some of the images as we are driving along Bayshore, past the Academy of the Holy Names now, places that people are certainly familiar with. The amazing thing to me, JB, was just to see the level of damage even after Helene along the Bayshore. I mean, we saw, you know, retaining walls that were blown out by the storm surge, concrete down, people's belongings from these beautiful homes along the Bayshore that were saturated, and they suffered damage. So, you know, we're not immune. Even people here along the Bayshore, and certainly we know a lot of people on Davis Islands who suffered a great deal of damage from Helene. And so everybody has been keeping a very close eye on exactly where Milton will hit, because where Milton hits is incredibly important in terms of that storm surge. Is the water going to be drawn out of the bay or pushed up into it? A few miles will make a huge difference. And so paying attention to Jeff Beardelli's wobble tracker is very important for all of us now. Real-time tracking of this storm becomes incredibly important. But of course, we hope that the people who are in harm's way are out of the way and not, you know, not trying to be brave and ride it out into an area where you can't get out. I will tell you that unfortunately, I was out on the Barrier Islands after Hurricane Helene, and I talked to the neighbors of several people who had elected to stay. I can remember there was one woman who was in her 80s who told her son that it's her house and she's not leaving. And it was incredibly sad. She called during the storm and said, "Can you help me?" And by then there were 5-foot waves coming down her street. Waves coming down her street from the storm surge. It would have been impossible at that point to evacuate her. And so, unfortunately, she perished in her home. She stood her ground and passed away because of it. So I sincerely hope that the people who need to get out, especially the elderly or people who have special needs, are out of harm's way at this time, because literally you're down to the last few minutes here to make that kind of a decision to evacuate. And I just urge anybody who can get out to get out if you need to.
Jeff Patterson reporting for us with Behind the Wheel. Joey Capistran, a great team here with Jeff Patterson in front of the camera, Joey behind it, and of course manning the Max Defender 8 Storm vehicle. The Max Defender 8 Storm vehicle, folks, is a 1 of 1. So Jeff, I'm going to ask you this. What is your plan for the coming hours? We know that the worst is ahead for Tampa, for, you know, south of Tampa all the way through to Sarasota and the greater Sarasota area. So where do you plan on heading? And perhaps you can also, between live shots, oh, here's some debris there in the roadway you got to get around. Perhaps between live shots on WFLA News Channel 8, you could check in with us and perhaps we can bring you back on as the storm worsens in your particular area.
Yeah, happy to do that, JB. Our plan is to stay here in Tampa, you know, and we have plan A, B, C, and D, if you will. It kind of depends on which way. Oh, I'm looking at some street flooding down here in the Inner Bay area. But, you know, we're going to keep a close eye on exactly where Hurricane Milton makes landfall. That will be incredibly important as to where we plan to go during this storm. We have places that we know that we can safely retreat to because, you know, I have lived in this community for a long time and feel reasonably confident that we know areas that we can get to and that we can evacuate to if we need to remain safe, and at the same time try to bring you the best coverage possible.
Jeff, I think the next upgrade that we got to make for the Max Fender 8 Storm vehicle, we're going to talk to our engineers about it. You ever been to the theme parks and they have the cars that can go in the water and then it becomes a boat? You know what I'm talking about? Why, Justin, why don't we have the Max Fender 8 Storm vehicle have the bottom of a boat? You know what I'm talking about, right? What's the name of those vehicles,
Amphibious.
Jeff? The amphibious vehicles, Jeff. Maybe we got to add that to
so,
the budget
So
next
last
year.
thing. Yeah, no, last thing I want to do is be in a submarine in the middle of a hurricane, guys. But thanks for the thought.
Of course, thinking of Jeff Patterson and Joey Capistrand. Guys, be safe out there in all seriousness. We are going to be checking in with your shop periodically. Jeff, just be aware that if you see something on the roadway, something that I see on our grid here in the Stream Center, I'm going to punch up your camera and maybe without audio, but I'm just going to take that feed if we see something interesting.
I'll unplug my mic so you don't have to listen to my incessant chatter.
No, the incessant chatter is quite popular on social media from veteran storm chaser and journalist Jeff Patterson. Jeff, thank you for your time and all the best to you and Joey.
All right, thank you.
All right, we hope to check in with you guys later on. Let's go back to the real-time wobble tracker on WFLA.com. This is the critical window now for Wobble Tracker. This is what we have made this tool for. It is why it was created, exactly for this scenario, to understand when a storm is making its approach, its final approach to our beautiful home, to the state of Florida, whether or not it is going to wobble more towards Tampa and Pinellas County and Hillsborough County, or whether it's going to stay on track, perhaps for Manatee County, or is it going to wobble south, Sarasota County, and towards Venice?
And that remains to be seen, and that's the critical work over the next several hours is to try and figure out and pin down where that core does make landfall, because it really will dictate where the storm surge is the highest. And if it is over our southern communities, Manatee and Sarasota, it's at the point of landfall and points to the south. That is the area that we are concerned about for the highest levels of storm surge.
And we'll, of course, keep the Wobble Tracker streaming just by itself on WFLA.com/Wobble Tracker. Yeah, all of our reporters are using it out in the field. Our meteorologists have it up and ready to take at a moment's notice. As I understand it, it's being streamed solo by thousands upon thousands of people across multiple different platforms. So we're really grateful that we have created something here at WFLA that is of such great and tremendous use to people, and we will keep it up throughout the duration of the storm. The Wobble Tracker, by the way, is not going to be useful for just the approach, but as it moves across land too, Justin, I'm sure that there are people in the greater Orlando area, south of there, even on Florida's East Coast, that could use this tool because, yeah, the storm is going to move and shift a bit as it's over land as well.
For sure. And because of the frictional component of the winds and with these outer bands, they're already seeing some effects with the numerous tornado warnings that are coming out from the local National Weather Service offices all across the state of Florida at this point.
All right, folks. So we'll continue to monitor the real-time Wobble Tracker on WFLA.com. The time is now 3:34 in the Stream Center with WSNN Chief Meteorologist Justin Mosley. Justin, anything you want to share, any observations in the last several minutes that you've been paying attention to from your vantage point?
Well, as of 3 o'clock, the storm was located 120 miles to the southwest of Tampa. So it is getting closer. And again, what we're concerned about is the core right around the eye wall there, as you see, with our Wobble Tracker, which does contain the strongest winds and the heaviest rains. And the outer fringes that we're dealing with right now across much of the Tampa Bay area, containing a lot of tornadic activity. We've seen numerous tornado warnings come out, and that will continue in that northeastern quadrant. That's what we look for ahead of the core of the storm, which we may see an advisory come out once it gets a little bit closer to making landfall.
Showing the Max Fender 8 storm vehicle, I mean, going through some of the side streets of Tampa.
A lot of ponding on the roadways there, for sure. This is from our Jeff Patterson out there, just offshore from Bayshore Boulevard. And again, low-lying areas, water is already beginning to kind of pile up here, and things will just get worse from this point on.
So let's go back to WFLA.com/reported and show some of the content that is coming in from you, everybody out there watching from around the area. Again, please use this tool safely and responsibly. Do not put yourself in harm's way for a photo or a video. It is not worth injury or worse. Let's continue on, and we showed this one from earlier from Kelsey. This is flooding in Northport from Josh as of 1:05 p.m., and it shows, pooling water here from Josh, and we've seen a lot of photos coming in like this one. Thank you for sending it along. Oh, wow, we've got a downed a palm tree. This is Fort Myers on McGregor, Justin.
Just speaks to these bands that we're already seeing. Tropical storm force winds already onshore across a good portion of the state of Florida, and we're looking for the hurricane force winds to be moving ashore within a short period of time. So now is the time to just be hunkered down, and that's unfortunate to see that down in Fort Myers there.
Let's continue on WFLA.com/reported and showcase next this shot from Jacksonville Beach. Okay, yeah, I would imagine
on the East Coast, and again, they're going to see storm surge as well coming in off the Atlantic because of the circulation of the storm is so large at this point. As I mentioned earlier, it was a very tight, compact storm, and as it gains latitude, it's starting to feel those upper level winds and of the jet stream, and the storm begins to kind of broaden out. And again, Jacksonville, Northeast Florida, along the first coast, dealing with wave action like that, it's only going to get worse throughout the night as the storm traverses across the state.
Let's see here, passing along the next one, and it is ponding in Northport. This one coming in from Alexander on, let's see here, the Miami Trail around
Tamiami Trail.
Tamiami, thank you. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's got Miami in it. So it threw me
Tampa
off.
to Miami, that's where that originated.
Yeah,
US
no,
41.
See, unfamiliar with that one. So
Yeah.
I know US 41.
Yes.
I did.
Commonly known as Tamiami Trail in that portion of Sarasota County.
And clearly significant flooding occurring here. Moving on the queue on WFLA.com/reported. The wind and rain in Tampa is what we're focusing on here from major at 2 o'clock. Major, thank you for sending that one in. Yeah, it's showing a rain band moving through the area, no doubt. Next up, this is from Deep D, St. Petersburg downtown, high winds and rain. Thank you, Deep D, for sending that one along. Wow, look at this. This is, I don't know, what are we looking at here, Justin? This is from Bradley in Fort Myers. According to our viewer, now, I have to be very clear. According to our viewer in Fort Myers, Bradley, this is an area that a tornado hit.
Gotcha.
Now, look, we can't independently confirm that at this time. It says aftermath of tornado. That was the comment that was put in. Not saying that we're not here to believe you, Bradley, but also at the same time, we can't confirm that until obviously, we have reports from the National Weather Service of a confirmed tornado in the area that you're sending this in from. But for what it's worth, everybody, that was the comment that was sent in with this picture. Gotcha. Let's continue on and show Philip joining us west of Lake Sebring, 3 o'clock.
Okay, Sebring inland, that is Highlands County, and the water is already starting to pile up there. Again, when we were looking at these videos here coming in, it's interesting to me because it's a good way to get a handle on the rainfall amounts that we have been forecasting. So the swath is the thinking right now 5 to 10 inches with localized higher amounts. And that's going to be critical, again, where
tornado
the storm...
warning just coming in. Polk County, Highlands County from
Yes.
3:39 to 4:30 p.m. So passing that along. So if we have a tornado warning segment on WFLA News Channel 8, we'll be going to that next. So stand by. I just want to pass that along.
Warnings for Haines City, Lake Wales, Lake Alfred area, which is in central Polk County. These storms will be moving very quickly from south to north. And again, the motion could be upwards of...
Here's a live look at the aqua fence. We just want to show this while we have a live picture on it.
Gotcha.
This is the aqua fence that, as we understand it, I mean, actually, no, I'm sorry. That was a previous look at the aqua fence. That was not live video. The aqua fence was used by Tampa General Hospital in Hurricane Helene to tremendous success, blocking storm surge and really the flooding of the Hillsborough River from making it into the first floor of the hospital. A phenomenal invention, and one that perhaps saved considerable damage to Tampa General Hospital, because Tampa, like us, TGH, right on the water, right on the Hillsborough River in downtown Tampa.
Yeah, surrounded by water there. So also known as a tiger dam, from what I understand.
Yeah, I think we're looking here at the Riverwalk, too. This is live now. Now I can confirm this is absolutely live. And so this is the Hillsborough River in downtown Tampa. We'll monitor live cameras and live pictures coming in from around the area. Here is Jeff Patterson on Bayshore Boulevard, and visibility is decreasing at this very moment. I think they are either entering a rain band, perhaps we can say. I mean, let's bring up Wobble Tracker and show.
Yeah, there's a squall that's moving right throughout South Tampa there on Bayshore Boulevard. And that's where we'll get the strongest winds in the short term, JB. I mean, those were the hurricane force winds that we've been concerned about, is during the period of these tropical squalls that'll be moving through the area. Again, our team is out there surveying what's going on. Experience of Jeff Patterson in good hands there. But again, this just illustrates what's going on across much of the Tampa Bay area, southward along the Sun Coast, and inland areas as well. Polk Highlands County, as mentioned earlier, that tornado warning continues for Polk County for the next few minutes with these very fast-moving tropical squalls and/or tornadoes moving through the region.
All right, let's bounce around. I want to show some of our older sources. Hopefully these are still intact. This is Pier 22 Restaurant, Manatee River in Bradenton.
Yes.
You can see that things are picking up here. Let's go back if we can. I don't know if we have this anymore. Hopefully we do.
Before you do,
there's Key West. Things are improving in Key West, no doubt.
Yes. On that Manatee camera, it was interesting to me.
We can go back to that
for just a second. On that Manatee camera, it was interesting to me looking westbound. Yeah. Okay, so towards the Gulf of Mexico, that is the Manatee River that you're looking at there. And notice the water elements are moving away from the camera. So this is blowing an easterly wind, blowing water out into the Gulf of Mexico, which is minimizing the storm surge currently for Manatee and Sarasota County into the Gulf of Mexico, which is minimizing the storm surge currently. When the surge does come in, you can see the water elements right now moving out. So water levels aren't bad, Manatee, Sarasota counties, but again, the landfall point is forecast to go right across this particular area that you're looking at. And again, with that east component to the wind, is keeping the water levels down, but that's all going to change as the center of the storm is getting closer. At last report, again, 120 miles southwest of Tampa. That means it is closer to downtown Sarasota and downtown Bradenton at this point in time. And we're most concerned about that semicircle that is the eye wall or the core of the storm, which contains the strongest winds, heaviest range, and the highest levels of storm surge.
So I'm really honed in here on the next scan of Wobble Tracker, because look at this motion that is currently taking place.
There's been a jog or a wobble,
no doubt, and
so the north.
I'm curious, when the 3:40 p.m., it doesn't come in at the precise time. It takes a moment for the scan to load, the frame itself to load. And we've seen frames load on screen. It kind of goes black for a moment because it's loading in the next image. I'm really curious to see what it looks like at 3:40, where the eye is in relation to this, and whether or not we are getting motion more east or more north, because clearly we're going northeast right now, but whether we're going north or east from here could have dramatic impacts over the area.
Absolutely, and that's why it's important to focus on that cone. Even though we are in We're really honing this in. We're in the last approach, so to speak, of this storm making landfall. It's still within that forecast cone error, which I mentioned earlier does include the southern portions of Tampa Bay. So if it does take that northern portion of the cone, then that would obviously create a worse situation for the Bay Area. So Pinellas, Hillsborough counties, if you're in St. Pete downtown Tampa, do not let your guard down. Again, Jeff Patterson is out, bringing the pictures to you, and that's exactly that's the way you should view it. It's through the lens of what we're providing to you, because it is still a very dangerous situation that could still play out for Tampa Bay and point to the south along the Sun Coast.
All right, we'll wait for that scan to come in. A quick moment to highlight something that I think is of importance to our audience, okay? This is a really tough job. We both have difficult jobs, but I'm going to highlight just why things are a little bit more challenging for me in a moment like this. I'm looking at a comment section that is demanding updates on this Lieutenant Dan person. And then I'm also getting a lot of, messages from people who are saying that is not something that they want to see. They don't want a spotlight to be on that particular individual. I was told by the WFLA newsroom that this is a story that was blowing up on social media, that you should address it, make sure that you just update people, because it came out of Mayor Castor's mouth that he had evacuated, and then, of course, he didn't. That has been there's been huge uproar apparently over this on social media, especially on TikTok. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm making the decision now in real time. I'm making this independently, and here's how I'm going to treat this going forward. If there's an update, I'll pass it along. If we get an update on that individual who has refused to vacate Tampa, I will pass it along here briefly on stream and let you know what has occurred and what the source of that information is, where we're getting that information. Otherwise, if that individual has hunkered down in their boat and they are refusing to leave, that is their decision. I understand that he is on one leg. I understand that there's tremendous goodwill out there, people that are just trying to get him out, and people that really have just a tremendous amount of love in their heart for people and don't want to see anybody in the line of this storm in a compromising situation like on a boat in downtown Tampa. But we have to make the best decision, obviously, here. And if I get an update, I'll pass it along, but that's going to be it. If you don't hear any updates, that means I haven't received any updates, and that's where we're going to leave it with that particular story. Hope people understand and just know that we have commenters asking for more, and then others who are obviously saying we need to be focused, of course, on our mission here to keep the greater area safe and not honed in on one particular individual. So we completely understand what people are saying out there. Let's get back to the real-time wobble tracker, and now we do have that 340 frame, that 340 scan. And let's see what it does right at the end. It just, man.
There is a slight jog off to the
north.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that jog is enough independently in that one frame to call it a wobble. Maybe the 350 frame, if it moves north again, that might be
more of a significant turn.
I don't know if it's a turn, maybe a wobble north, right? What do you think?
Well, it's wobbling currently. So
right.
What we're seeing, it's not following that red line exactly. And this is to be expected. That's why we have that cone of uncertainty. But again, we look at a trend. We'll have to wait and see, as you mentioned, for more frames to come in and kind of confirm if this is a motion that is going to continue and moving that towards the mouth of Tampa Bay. Again, this is all critical when we're working this real time. Watching the radar images from Max Defender 8 radar coming in. And it's critical to watch exactly those frames and how this is going to set up. Because right now, if you just follow that trajectory, that would push the storm a lot closer to the mouth of Tampa Bay.
No doubt.
Which has significant impacts to the forecast. And again, we're looking live here again from Jeff Patterson's camera as they are along Bayshore Boulevard, traveling southbound right now. And a lot of water is already ponding there on Bayshore. That's something else that we do expect to see in the Tampa Bay area here, and this is all going to just get worse. And you just have to take a minute to think about if that storm does continue on that track that it is now. All of this is going to come up rapidly, and it's going to be significant on Bayshore Boulevard. So again, we can see that a lot of homes are boarded up or they have their storm shutters up, but hopefully there is no one in those homes right now, because things can change rapidly in this portion of Tampa.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up the Max Fender vehicle, wow, you know, I'm always blown away by how majestic some of these homes are. I mean, just folks, if you've never been on Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa, some of the homes here are just, but look at them. They're boarded up, as Jeff noted earlier. The reason I bring this shot up is because clearly we are seeing the ebbs and flows of Milton. This is a way less hectic shot from a weather perspective than 15 minutes ago, when it was, it was raining pretty hard. The winds were really, picking up there, but things have improved there in just the last several minutes on Bayshore Boulevard. It's just not as chaotic as it was, and that's because we're moving through bands of this system.
Exactly. They're in between one of those rain bands right now, so it's not nearly as chaotic as you mentioned. But what a beautiful stretch. If you don't know Tampa, this is known for, if you do know Gasparilla, this is exactly where that plays out every year. One of the largest parades in the country, and this is that stretch of road that is really going to bore potentially the brunt of this storm, depending upon where it does make landfall. And that's why it's so critical that we do have that wobble tracker here at WFLA to monitor exactly where the core of this storm will move ashore along the west coast of the state.
Yeah, Gasparilla is an enormous event for Tampa. It's a celebration of Tampa, the rich pirate history that Tampa has. If you've never seen Gasparilla before, I'm just going to try to give everybody a perspective as to what this area looks like at its peak, because whoa, hold on, I'm loading it up here. Gasparilla, for those unaware, it's when Tampa, everyone gets dressed up as pirates, and a group of pirates, YMKG, ye mystic crew of Gasparilla, they invade this area with a big parade, as Justin noted. So if you've never seen that before, I'm going to try to load that up on screen just so that people can see what this area looks like when it's not being impacted by a hurricane. Hopefully I have it.
When it's not being impacted by the hurricane, it's the place to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And I'm trying to download it. Yeah, no, our server's not letting me get it. Okay, here's a look. Where are we now?
This is just offshore from Bayshore. He just turned off of there, and maybe kind of making their way back around. But certainly things will... That camera is going to change dramatically. But you can see on the Max Defender radar, the wobble tracker, they're in between one of those bands, JB. You notice that green over where it says Tampa? That's just light to occasionally moderate rain. But notice to the south and east of there, another squall is going to come right across the downtown area of Tampa. And this is the way it's going to be up until landfall, in and out of the bands. And, yeah, it's going to be a rough go of it. Already, conditions are really bad. If you're listening or watching us in Sarasota and Manatee counties. Venice along US 41, known as Tamiami Trail. I mean, some of the worst weather that you've seen all day occurring there. Northward through downtown Sarasota that took so much storm surge over Longboat Key, Lido Key, St. Armand Circle, west bound along the Gulf of Mexico Trail there, northward towards Anna Maria Island. You're dealing with a pretty impressive squall. But again, the core of the storm is still positioned just offshore, those 130 mile per hour winds at last report.
And so as we look here at Wobble Tracker, all that activity, the reds and oranges at the north side of the storm, that's heading for Hillsborough County, is it not? I mean, even with it holding on the track, all of that is heading, and that's, we've been talking about this for days, Justin. This is a flood event for Hillsborough County being on the north side of the storm, Pinellas County as well. Surge event for the southeastern quadrant, no doubt. But, I mean, there's going to be an insane amount of rain that's going to fall over some of these northern northern spots.
We can see it playing out with the radar there. Southern areas south of Fort Myers, not nearly as much rain, and that's due to some drier air intrusion on the south side. Notice the western and southwestern portion of the eye wall, not as closed off as what we see in the northeastern quadrant. So again, it's somewhat front-loaded. As I've been mentioning, the heaviest rain occurring along and north of the center of circulation in the eye, and this is a great radar image there
hold
showing.
on, sorry.
Showing that.
Yep.
That's good. And you can see those bands affecting the East Coast. So again, if you're watching or listening from Orlando, along the Space Coast, down towards the Treasure Coast, that is a concern. But again, the core of the storm is going to be working its way onshore and to the north of the core. That's where we're dealing with the potential of the heaviest amount of rain, and the flooding will be a big concern there.
All right, so this is what Bayshore Boulevard, downtown Tampa, right on the bay itself, what it looks like, now. Empty, wet, windy, and just...
Empty is exactly what we want to see.
Right. But what it looks like when it's not empty, folks, is this. This is Gasparilla. Quick 30 seconds on this, because people that are joining us from outside the Tampa Bay area are unfamiliar with one of the biggest parties really in the southeastern United States. This is basically Tampa's Mardi Gras that celebrates the rich pirate history that exists with Tampa. The ship there that you see is the Jose Gaspar, which has a lot of pirates on it. They invade the city of Tampa, and that right there, I want to go full screen here, that is Bayshore Boulevard. I mean, filled with people celebrating just Tampa and Tampa life and the Tampa Bay region. And this is a enormous party where everyone is dressed up as pirates and talking like pirates. So this is Tampa really on one of its happiest days. And so to see it now looking like this, it's just the complete polar opposite, right? Exactly. What you sign up for when you move down to Florida, you sign up for the chances of hurricanes arriving. You get all the great stuff. You get the margarita festivals, you get Gasparilla, you get Tom Brady coming down, winning a Super Bowl, the Lightning winning Stanley Cups. You get some great stuff in Florida.
Tampa Bay
is part of it. No income tax is a big thing. The beautiful beaches of Clearwater Beach, all the way down through Sarasota, the theme parks, Disney. There's so much to love about Florida. But man, if you're signing up for the good, you're also signing up for that chance.
There's a bit of a price to pay.
A bit of a price to pay, and that's a hurricane tropical storm hitting when it feels like it. You never want to see it happen.
That's so true. And as a meteorologist, it's our job to inform people that move here for all those wonderful things that you just mentioned, JB, to inform them about tropical cyclones and that threat that occurs every year during hurricane season. And as we mentioned, we thought this would be an extremely active hurricane season, and it only takes one to be active. And we've dealt with several now. And again, we're in the midst of this major hurricane that is going to be making landfall somewhere across the Tampa Bay area along the Sun Coast. Again, still remains to be seen. As we watch the wobble tracker, every wobble is critical.
The 350 scan is in. Yeah. And it looks like a bit of a north by northeast movement here, a bit of a jog north of the track. And every wobble, every scan, every frame that comes in from this point is huge.
It really is. And the wind field continues to expand as the storm is slowly weakening and gaining latitude. So again, the effects are already here across our entire viewing area.
A live interview. Let's listen in.
A mobile home too, so we just didn't want to be kind of blown over.
And family of 6 are all here?
Yes, ma'am. So we're all here safe and sound right now.
And here in Polk County, the conditions continue to fluctuate. We're seeing some of that heavy rain go steady back and forth, as well as that wind gust again starting to pick up. Keith and Stacy.
All right, that's Georgia MacArthur joining us, everybody, and we'll continue to monitor her shot as well. I'm sorry, Justin, I interrupted you there. Please continue. Whenever I see a live interview or a live camera, I'm going to punch it up as quickly as I can.
Yes, it's critical to get that information out to our listeners and viewers here. But looking at the spaghetti model plot, you mentioned this earlier, how the model data has really come into very good agreement with a landfall point somewhere between St. Petersburg and I'd say about Sarasota down into Inglewood area. Again, the exact track remains to be seen. We're watching and monitoring every wobble that you see on the wobble tracker, but the 4 o'clock numbers are in, JB, and you can see that
Look at that.
the storm is now Category 3.
Wait, whoa. Did we get a track update?
We did
No.
not get a track
But you know,
update.
it's
That will-
interesting. Okay,
It's
so
a
but we
position
are down to a
update.
Cat 3. So we're down to a Cat 3 as expected at the 3 o'clock update. Or no, I'm sorry, the 4 o'clock update. I'm sorry, Justin, continue because
yes,
we have a positional update, and the positional update it's so significant that it looks like the track has shifted, but really the track update is going to drop in less than an hour from now.
Correct.
In the 5 o'clock update. That will be the final track update before landfall, by the way. There is no way that this system makes it through to 11 o'clock tonight without making landfall. It's just knocking and barreling through our front door. So let's look here. Max wind speeds 125 miles an hour, Justin. Spaghetti models and consensus. This is the 4 o'clock advisory.
It's in, and again, the data still is honed in on the Suncoast region. That is Manatee, Sarasota counties, home to Bradenton, Sarasota, Venice, Inglewood, and around Northport. And again, we can clearly see the eye of the storm with our Max Defender radar. That northeast quadrant is definitely the strongest portion of the storm right now, and that is going to be moving ashore somewhere within the News Channel 8 viewing area here along the coast. From there, it will march inland. So I want to talk to our viewers inland. Polk County, Highlands County, Hardy, DeSoto County will deal with extreme amount of wind. You're all under hurricane warnings right now, and you've been dealing with tornado warnings inside of the rain bands that continues, in particular there in Polk County. Those are extremely heavy cells. And as all this continues to progress to the north and northeast, weather will continue to deteriorate. So again, there's the latest information in 125, 100 miles west-northwest of Fort Myers right now.
Back up to 17 miles an hour, by the way.
Yes, which is critical. Again, the faster the storm is moving, the quicker we're going to get this in and out. And it also lessens the rainfall amounts, the totals that we'll see when this is all said and done, which is front-loaded. So again, talking to Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus County, inland into Polk County, that's where we're going to find the heaviest rainfall rates and heaviest rainfall totals when this is said and done. Now, the storm surge that we've all been so worried about is going to be from the point of landfall and points to the south. So if that eye is able to make it over Tampa Bay, that storm surge will be extremely high. Again, we've been looking at values between 10 and 15 feet. That remains to be seen. But again, the confidence is higher at point of landfall and points to the south along that Manatee, Sarasota County coastline where mandatory evacuations were issued. Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island, Casey Key, as well as Lido Beach, all those areas. Beautiful real estate, some of the best and prettiest beaches in the entire world being battered right now as the eye wall is closing in as we speak. Again, looking at the satellite review, it's a little drier on the southwest side, some dry air intrusion. If we had a water vapor imagery, that would really kind of illustrate that drier air that is being entrained in that circulation, and thus the wind speeds coming down with the 4 o'clock update. That is a position update from the National Hurricane Center. Again, as JB mentioned, we will get a track update at 5 p.m., which will be our last track update before the storm does move ashore is the thinking right now. But again, I can't overemphasize these battering winds that are just beginning to move in onto the coastline of Manatee and Sarasota counties, and it will go like this for several more hours as the eye wall is beginning to make that approach into portions of Sarasota and Manatee. We are here. We're watching. We're going to keep live with all this as the data does come in, JB.
Yeah, and key messages have just come out from the National Hurricane Center. I'll read as follows. Heavy rainfall with tropical storm force winds are spreading inland across the Florida peninsula. A recent wind gust of 68 miles per hour was recorded at a mezzanette site located in Fort Myers Beach. There's also multiple tornado warnings in effect across the Florida peninsula. If a tornado warning is issued for your area, be ready to shelter quickly, preferably away from windows and in an interior room not prone to flooding. The next update will be with the full advisory package at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So that's the update from the National Hurricane Center. And we will get one more track. Now, What's interesting about the 5 o'clock track is that it might seem like a foregone conclusion for folks on the coast, Tampa, Sarasota, Venice, but inland and Florida's East Coast. Thinking about you guys too here, because this is you're on deck. This is coming your way next.
That is very good point.
Here's what's fascinating about this. There's gonna be land interaction. So as the storm moves inland, what will land interaction do? How will it break apart? It's clearly going to weaken to a Category 1 hurricane. Will there be significant shifts in the track? Are we talking about closer to Jacksonville? Or are we talking about closer to the Space Coast? What areas are going to see significant impacts from this storm?
So as it moves inland, we do know that it will weaken. Again, hurricane gets its energy from the warm water source, and once it is over land, you can't draw upon that. So the storm will begin a weakening phase once it does make landfall. With that said, you can see the forecast cone right there. The National Hurricane Center, and we'll get an update at 5, brings the storm across portions of Polk and Osceola counties and offshore from the Space Coast, that is around Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral area, anywhere south of there into Indian River County, Vero Beach, Sebastian Inlet, down to Fort Pierce, which are dealing with, as you can see with the Max Defender radar, numerous tornado warnings and severe weather ongoing there now, and tropical storm force winds. They will bore the brunt of those hurricane force conditions once the storm does make landfall and track across the state. So again, for our viewers in Polk County, in Highlands, Hernando, DeSoto counties, or I should say Hardy counties, will deal with these strong winds, heavy rain, and that risk of tornadoes from now until the overnight hours before the storm does make its way offshore from the East Coast. But again, we have to give some heads up to our listeners here in the interior portion of the state and the East Coast as this storm is headed for you later tonight and into tomorrow morning. So again, as we look at the satellite review, the high cold cloud tops indicative of the intensifying storm that we saw earlier now beginning to decrease in intensity as it gets a little closer to the coast due to sheer slightly cooler water temperatures, some dry air intrusion. So right now working off of a Category 3 storm, which is still, I mind you, considered a major hurricane moving ashore right now. Again, the Max Defender radar doing an excellent job with each scan coming in, tracking that core, which is the most dangerous portion of the storm. We've seen lightning flashes around there, which is indicative of the intense updrafts and speaks to the intensity of the storm, which is holding its own. Again, down from a Category 4 to 3, but still a major storm working its way ashore of Manatee and Sarasota, JB.
All right, so we just launched the poll on WFLA.com because we have now this area of time between now and the 5 o'clock update. Again, if you're just joining us, Milton, a Category 3 storm lashing the state of Florida right now. Impacts being felt as south as Fort Myers all the way through up. I'm sure Bricksville is starting to feel impacts all the way up in Hernando County, Spring Hill, that area, I'm sure starting to feel it. Even inland all the way through to Lakeland and beyond. Polk County, we've seen some live camera crews reporting conditions there. In fact, let's get to Eileen Natchik, I believe, in Pasco County. Let's get to her next. Let's listen in.
Brought a few of them. I'm facing east right now. You can see this rain is coming down northeast. It's quite interesting. It picks up and then it slows down. So you get a big gust of wind, a big gust of rain, slows down a bit, picks back up. As you can see, my photographer here is going to zoom in on this palm tree just for a visualization of just kind of how much rain is coming down and how hard the wind is going. But we'll talk about the shelters here. Earlier today, my wonderful friend Brianna Villegas and her photographer Joseph are shooting Sun Lake High School, 5A High School, and River Ridge High School. These are some of the shelters you can go to that are pet friendly. People coming in and out. It's so important, can't stress this enough, to make sure your pets are okay and taken care of. But Rebecca's saying this rain is not going to stop here, and she's right. If anything, it'll continue to pick back up. We'll be out here all night and evening long, bringing you the latest coverage. You can see I've got the rain dripping from my hat right now, coming down to my left side, your right side. So stay inside. That's the most important thing. Hunker down and stay safe.
Eileen doing a great job. Let me explain. So Eileen, we'll explain this as a bit of inside baseball. Eileen whenever a hurricane hits, it's all hands on deck.
Absolutely.
Eileen is used to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not used to being in a hurricane.
Yes.
But doing a phenomenal job for us on WFLA News Channel 8. We asked a flash poll on YouTube Live what people want to see the most of. Models and Wobble Tracker is the #1 pick. Behind that, reporters and cameras out in the field. And then after that, reported photos and videos. So we will do it in that order. Let's look at the latest scans. This is the 4 o'clock scan from Wobble Tracker, the positional update. Now, okay, so if the track, this is where we are now in that critical, this is the critical hour for Wobble Tracker. This is it.
This is it.
We've hit, because what's going to happen at 5 o'clock, the NHC is going to update their track. And what's going to happen is the line is going to shift and it's going to be basically arriving. So this is the most important hour for Wobble Tracker ever, because will, in these final few scans, basically the 410, 420, 430, and 440 scans from satellite and radar, I'm sorry, not satellite, this is radar now, will the storm be moving northeast, or will it follow the red line and jog east to Sarasota?
At this point in time, it's going to be difficult for the storm to kind of take a hard right and follow that red line that
but
you
Justin,
see.
if that's true, this is heading to Tampa.
Yes. If this trend holds, it is headed towards Tampa Bay.
Because the jet stream has picked it up, right?
That is critical. Yes, it is. It's feeling the influence of the trough that we've been talking about for so long. And again, we're monitoring this minute by minute, but you can clearly see for yourself, and that's why your viewers want to see this Wobble Tracker, and rightfully so. This is really illustrating the track that this storm is taking. And we're showing it to you live on the air here. And we're going to continue to follow this Wobble Tracker. And the concern is the water level rise, as we call it, storm surge in the bay. If this storm does go over Tampa Bay, hopefully everybody is in there, away from the water in a shelter and can weather this storm. But that is the concern now over the next several hours. If that motion northeast, again, you can clearly see it, continues moving towards the bay, the concern is the storm surge that we've been so fearful of. And again, at one point, we saw the Hurricane Center's track. We saw the model data, all emphasizing Sarasota and Manatee counties. But judging by the radar trends that we see, and this is what we do, is kind of nowcasting at this point in time. Sure, we're going to get a track update at 5 o'clock, but it's all about keeping an eye on that core and where it's tracking. And we can do that real time with the Max Defender 8 radar and our Wobble Tracker that you're seeing live here with us.
Yeah, so this, folks,
it's concerning.
For the next 45 minutes, we're going to really stay honed in on this as much as we can. I'll bounce around to here a little bit. Jeff is on air right now talking about Wobble Tracker.
Southern part of Tampa Bay. It would only push surge into the southern part of Tampa Bay. It's a big circulation. In fact, it's probably about 60 miles across the eye wall. Remember, a couple of days ago, it was 4 miles across. So it's just really expanded. So on the eastern side, the circulation is really, really wide. Therefore, the center of the storm would really have to get this far north around St. Pete Beach in order for the counterclockwise flow to drive water into the bay. So we would have to see a wobble continue for the next hour or so, or two, so that it gets to this right here before it makes that turn. It's conceivable. So if it gets as far north as St. Pete Beach and Madeira Beach, then that water can be forced into Tampa Bay, and we'd be concerned about that. So far, wind gusts to 59, and that is it. But we're about to see those wind gusts pick up even more. There's the outer eye wall right there, and look at just on time. We said it would probably come in at 5. It's going to come in at 5 right there. That is where we're going to see those wind gusts, probably to about, I'd say, 90 miles an hour. And then the inner eye right there, when that comes inshore, probably about an hour or two later, we'll start to see those wind gusts to about 110 miles an hour, maybe even a little higher than that. And that will work its way straight across Sarasota, Bradenton, St. Pete, and Tampa. So Tampa, you are going to be in the eye wall. St. Petersburg, you are going to be in the northern eye wall. And the heaviest rain is going to be right there, which means it's likely to get into Pasco. It's likely to get into Polk County as well. So showing you the hour-by-hour radar, this is our model. And you can see, this is the latest one. There it is, the center of circulation coming right through Tampa Bay. So clearly, it is still possible that we could see that happen. That's why these last-minute wobbles really matter. But just as importantly, look at how heavy the rain is for hours and hours and hours in northern Pinellas County. Like I said before, we already have 4 or 5 inches in places. If you are in a neighborhood that typically floods, make sure you get your valuables and lift them up. Put them on the counter, because you do not want to lose your photos, your documents, whatever you have that's important to you, because this strip is going to see probably 10 to 20 inches of rain. That includes places like Wesley Chapel. Everything starts to get better. We'll get into an onshore flow tomorrow morning. Actually, cooler, drier air moves in. A lot of us won't have power, but at least that autumn air will have moved in, and it will make for much nicer conditions around here. You may not need the air conditioner for a few days. So we've already had 5 inches of rain, 4 or 5 inches of rain in places. We're going to add another foot in the red, and that dark shading right there is another 15 inches of rain. So you can imagine the flash flooding we're going to see. Flash flood warning is in effect for Pinellas County and also for Manatee County as we speak. So again, we're awaiting the landfall of this system. It's likely to come through, I'd say probably at around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. is when we're going to see the eye, the center of circulation, make landfall. It has weakened from a 5. Now it's a Cat 3. Winds are 125, just as we suspected it would be. That means, and because it's a weakening storm, you're not going to see sustained winds of 120, but you may get some gusts to about 100 and 125 miles an hour. All right, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up and toss it back to you, Keith and Stacy.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. You know, we have all eyes
with you, and thank you to Jeff for breaking that down. Jeff's been working.
Oh, absolutely. The whole team has been all over this storm, and some takeaways from what he just kind of broke down there. The core of the storm, what we've been concerned about, getting into the Tampa Bay area, that eye wall that Jeff just mentioned, that's the strongest portion of the storm. So that will be impacting Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. That's number one. Second thing, the rainfall is just staggering that he just showed. 10 to 15 inches of rain. As he mentioned, already dealing with 5 inches of rain that's fallen in our northern counties, Pasco, Hernando, up into Citrus County. And the rain continues to pile up. He mentioned a flash flood advisory for Manatee County, down around Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, Bayshore Gardens, down into Sarasota. And that's coming from that particular band that we're watching on the Max Defender 8 radar right there. But again, the core is still yet to come. Landfall somewhere between 7 and 8 is the thinking from our weather team. And we've got between now and then for this tremendous amount of rain to continue to pour over the Bay Area and points to the north. So flooding will be a major concern when this is said and done.
I see a line heading for Pinellas County.
With a track, you're mentioning.
With the jets, I mean, with the, no, I mean, I'm talking about the movement of the storm. Now, is it going to slither? I'll bring that word back. Is it going to slither back northeast or east by northeast? I'm using, my two eyes here, and I am seeing the storm moving on a northeast line that takes this through Pinellas through Tampa Bay. Now, there's going to be some shit. That's why I'm waiting for this 420 scan. But Jeff, are you seeing the same sort of line that I am seeing? What do you see?
Yeah, I've been talking about this on air, and you're not going to have me for very long because clearly I'm losing my voice. But that's okay. So I'm going to power through this, but clearly, Justin, this thing has moved north of where it was supposed to. There's no way it's making a right turn right now and going straight into Sarasota.
Yes.
So, although, again, the eye wall is like 60 miles wide now, so it doesn't really matter necessarily, except if this center gets north of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, and then it's a big problem
because of the circulation around the storm. You got to have that southwest flow to push the water into the bay. So that's going to be very critical where it makes landfall, and can it get that far north in latitude? That's the question that we're watching.
If you extrapolate that, it is headed towards St. Pete Beach.
Exactly.
So it's got to turn. It's supposed to turn. We might see it all of a sudden turn in like 10 or 15 minutes, and it will move through Bradenton. But at this point, to get to Sarasota proper for landfall,
it's going to be very difficult to do.
Seems unlikely. And it may be a situation where it splits the uprights of Tampa Bay, and then the southern part of Tampa Bay gets a lot of surge, but it spares the northern part. Man, this is a close call. We knew that we'd be on pins and needles, and the wobble tracker is really helping us to see this, with our eyes, like
in
JB
real
said.
time.
Jeff, this is. I mean, we're getting really close here to landfall, and we don't know if the NHC's track is going to hold.
Well, I don't see that it can, but we're going to get a new track in about 30 minutes.
I have to be fair. To be fair, we're really focused on that center
That's
line.
right. But
the
cone was up to St. Pete Beach, and that's why we tell people
don't pay attention to the center of the line. Pay attention to the cone.
I wrote a post last night, just saying, listen, we don't know exactly where this is going to go. Just be safe, take care of your family, take care of yourself, make smart decisions, because we just, these are impossible. We've become so far, Justin, in being able to predict where these storms are going, and we're able to nail it 4 or 5 days ahead within like 50 miles, but that last 50 miles is so hard.
And it's been so critical that we've all been mentioning.
Look at the
tens
cone.
of miles.
I'm sorry. So look at the cone. Well, so the cone has really the Sunshine Skyway Bridge is being like the northern side of the cone. So maybe, just maybe, I don't know. There needs to be some northeast or east by northeast movement for it to stay in the cone. But that last movement, did the 420 scan come in yet? It hasn't. But we'll pay attention.
That's
I'm
what
sorry,
we're going to be doing.
I cut you off there.
No,
but,
you're good. You're good. It's very critical to keep an eye on this wobble tracker that we have here at FLA, because it really, each scan that comes in is going to show the motion of the storm, and that really dictates where the highest storm surge is going to be. We know that the core is going to impact the Tampa Bay area. Pinellas, Hillsborough County, as I mentioned, into Manatee. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us. It took a second to get off TV to come join us here, working really hard along with the rest of the team. But you can see that we do have that core that is moving off to the north. And again, the eye wall is going to impact us with those strong winds, but it's about that surge that we're so fearful of, JB. What will this do? And we still are having a difficult time kind of pinning that down at this point.
So I think it's fair to say, as Jeff noted, impacts are going to be impacts at this point, but the surge into Tampa Bay could be catastrophic if it does move north of Tampa Bay, really into Pinellas. If the line goes through Pinellas or even southern Pinellas County, you're talking about all of that momentum basically whipping into Tampa Bay and pushing waters of Tampa Bay, not out of the bay, but into the bay. And that's why I think the 420 scan is in. And okay, wait a minute.
Let's see what this does here.
Wait a minute there.
It's a wobble back to the east.
Wobble back east.
And this is what these storms do. So you have to be very cautious about a few scans. And I mentioned that maybe 20 minutes ago in this conversation. You need scan after scan after scan to look for a trend to kind of make a call. And this is still within the confines of that forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. And we stress that so often on television and through our social media posts to focus on that cone for the center of circulation. It has nothing to do with impacts. We can see the impacts are far-reaching across the state. But when you get down to it, that core of the storm is going to be so critical over the next several hours. And it's still, at this point, is within that forecast cone, that margin of error from the National Hurricane Center.
So that rotation, it is in a counterclockwise direction.
Correct.
Has the potential, and storm surge scenario 1 that we've been highlighting. Real quick, Eric Stone in the backup location.
Notice a slight deviation to the north on wobble tracker. So again, we'll see if the National Hurricane Center does deviate the track slightly to the north.
So many texts and questions coming into the site. I've just fielded some of my own, wondering for people in Tampa, it doesn't look good when any jog goes north. Does this thing still have time to make a dramatic move, or is it too late in the game? It's going to hit
No, I mean, it still has time to stay on course. So we're not out of the woods yet in regards to storm surge in Tampa Bay. Of course, we are expecting a landfall somewhere in Manatee and Sarasota County. Again, we'll see the 5 o'clock update coming up in just about 20 minutes or so.
The good news is you said it's slowed down a bit. Cat 3 now.
It's weakened a bit,
and,
yes.
And with that, does it speed up?
You know, technically when a storm becomes a little more extratropical, then yes, it does speed up. So this is going to race 17 up to 20 miles per hour through. So at least it's getting out of here faster, especially compared to Ian.
Right. And then we were out in the lobby. We talked to a lot of people. They're just kind of congregating. A lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of pets hanging out in the lobby. We have a story for you we're going to air in a little bit with an interview with a couple from St. Pete Beach. But just talking to them, they're all in the same boat. They went through Helene, this couple that I talked with, and they said it ruined everything. They weren't taking any chances with this one, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. Helene was the wake-up call.
And I heard them say that they decided Friday, right? The storm was just getting going in the western Gulf of Mexico. They were very smart. They had the plans in place, and now they're going to be safe. You know, it's the people that wait till the last second. That's what you worry about. You don't want to do that. You want to be prepared.
And we're about 20 miles up the road from that studio in downtown Tampa, so we're starting to feel the effects, as Eric said, outside right now. The rain's really piling up. Kind of worried about that parking lot. We're going to see how that's going to handle 10, 12 inches of rain, so we'll report back on that. But that's the latest up here at the Hyatt Place in Wesley Chapel, just off of I-75. We'll keep tabs on the situation here and give you updates as we have them. We'll send it back to you.
All right, so that was Josh Benson and Eric Stone in our backup location. Look here. All right. It's a little bit, that last frame. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of this all, Justin, because the NHC's track still has it going through Sarasota.
And we will not get an update until 5 o'clock on that. That will not change. So at this point in time, it's about nowcasting, as I mentioned earlier. We're watching the radar trends. What is the storm actually doing right now? Aside from the model data, it's just watching the radar trend that we see, and there is a slight wobble to the north now in this last frame, a little bit further to the east, but that's exactly the nature of these storms. They don't follow a line. They do exactly what that the headline says there. They wobble. So if it continues to kind of wobble north in latitude, the question is how far north in latitude, how much latitude can it gain? So again, as we look at these images here.
This is from Brian Enton of News Nation. The cranes swinging in the wind. And Paola mentioning that you can send in videos to WFLA.com/report it. We will get to those in just a few minutes. Our entire team at WFLA uses Report It. I'm sorry, Justin, continue.
Yeah, we were just mentioning.
Those were power outage numbers.
Yes.
Okay, so these are just coming in. This is brand new, 70,000 in the area.
That's crazy. That's crazy. This early in the game, we're going to see a lot of power outages. And I think there's going to be a swath of power outages from the Bay Area throughout Central Florida, and then eventually over towards the East Coast, the Space Coast, the Northern Treasure Coast. So if you have friends or family over there, we're talking about Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, again, down to Sebastian, Palm Bay, Vero Beach. Those are areas that will be impacted by Milton late tonight and through the day tomorrow. So this is not just a West Coast storm. In fact, storm surge will be felt on the Northeast coast of around Jacksonville and St. Augustine because of the expanding wind field of the storm itself. This is not just a West Coast event. So it's certainly going to impact a good portion of the state.
All right. So Wobble Tracker is currently in the 420 Eastern scan. We will come back to Wobble Tracker upon the 4:30 scan. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is go to WFLA.com/report it to show what is being sent in from around the area. Again, please use this tool safely and responsibly. Do not put yourself in the elements for a photo or a video that could compromise your safety. With that said, let's get to it. We had this one in earlier from Philip. Let's continue on. We're going to go through these pretty quickly, Justin, because we've got a lot in the queue, and I want to keep things moving here and get back to Wobble Tracker. This is Sophie, 99th Avenue North in Naples, says, great timing for road work. And clearly this road work, seeing significant flash flooding on this street. Let's move on. This is a street flooded. Lauren sending this in.
It's flooded.
Largo, Florida.
The dog had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, walking the dog. Yep. That's so many people.
It's a necessary thing. Right?
Yep. Let's see here. This is Daniela. Wow, look at the winds gusting here. This is Bradenton overlooking the Manatee River.
And at one point, we can pull up our sky cam once again in Bradenton and see what the winds are doing down the Manatee River, because it really illustrates that east component to the wind, which is
the Skyway Bridge or Manatee River in Bradenton. Oh no, yeah. Let me see if we
Pier
have
22.
that still. Let me see if I still have that. I can bring it up here live.
But yeah,
wow, look at it now.
Yeah, a big difference in the picture from what we saw earlier. But again, as we watch the water elements blowing, this camera again positioned in downtown Bradenton, looking westbound, the water is flowing still out of the Manatee River towards the Gulf of Mexico. So the water level rise, the storm surge that we're fearful of has not begun just yet in portions of Manatee, Sarasota, and into Tampa Bay.
Lance sending this in to report it. Wow, a big down tree in Cedar Lane in Brooksville up in Hernando County. We're going to be seeing a lot of this, folks.
Especially in the Nature Coast area. Jeff showed those rainfall amounts.
This is Steve from South Lakeland. Hold on.
Gotcha.
South Lakeland. Lots of rain right now. Strong winds.
All right, I'm sorry, Justin, continue. That was Steve in Lakeland.
Yeah, rainfall is going to be a big concern. North of the circulation, it's somewhat front-loaded with all this heavy amounts of rain. Already reports 5-6 inches of rain has fallen thus far, and we can see on the Max Offender radar trends how the rain continues to just pile up in our northern counties, Citrus, Hernando, Pasco, and even in the northern portions of Hillsborough County. Somewhere in there is going to see a big bullseye of rain, but we're thinking 10 to 15 inches possible. The only good news, the forward motion of the storm, it is speeding up a bit. A faster motion would decrease those rainfall amounts. So
Bobby,
let's hope for that.
In Wauchula and Hardy County. I'm sorry, Justin, continue. I just want to shout out some of these as we get through them.
So inland areas, dealing with that.
Absolutely. Brandy on Ruby Lake in Winter Haven says video of backyard on the lake, very windy and flooding occurring here. And you can see visibility beginning to deteriorate. Let's continue on. This is Susan.
The water is already building up on the grass, coming down pretty hard.
Susan in Plant City sending this in, saying that the rain really picked up around 3:45 p.m. Going out of St. Lucie. Fort Pierce, flooding occurring here. Thank you to Tina for sending this one. Oh wow, look at the vehicle in the background. That's a big no-no, folks.
Absolutely. We always tell people, turn around, don't drown, don't drive through water of unknown depth. That is not what you need to be doing in a situation like this.
All right, high winds reported in, let's see here, this is West Chase, Florida from Tiffany. Next up, Wayne is joining us from Gestador Avenue. Flooding occurring here. I only have a street. I don't have a town or a county. But that's significant flooding for this stage. I mean,
and that's freshwater flooding. That is not storm surge at this point in time.
Current weather activity in Palm Bay on the east coast of Florida. This is from William. Sarasota downtown. You might know this area.
Very well. There is the Selby Library there. My goodness. And more than likely that was in a squall when that was taken.
Again, this is being sent in WFLA.com/report. Here is a locator and a timestamp. 3:52 p.m. Grove Park in Brandon, Seffner, Florida. And showing there, looks like patio furniture and a lot of rain coming down. I mean, look, gosh. Getting nasty out there, folks. All right, this is Megan in downtown Clearwater. Current conditions there, or near current conditions. This one came in a short time ago. You can see the wind whipping that rain around significantly. This is from a balcony in downtown Clearwater, not too far away from the Gulf of Mexico. Two more. Let's get to Kelly in Port St. Lucie. Flooding outside of her property there. Thank you, Kelly, for sending that one in. And this is Calendula, flooded roads in rain in Port Charlotte, Florida. No audio on this video, but you can see from the property. Back to real-time wobble tracker. We'll get to more of your videos sent into WFLA.com/reported.
Which is really helpful with illustrating what's going on out there. And doing this safely is critical as well.
I'd like to give a moment to spotlight News Channel 8's Rebecca Barry. Let's check in with Rebecca.
Tornadoes. We can't promise that we won't see tornadoes during the overnight hours, but that consistent band of tornadoes is now out of our area. Now we're starting to get into the thick of things with rain in Sarasota, Bradenton, and St. Pete. You can see these waves of deluge downpours. These are blinding downpours. Yet this is another reason you don't want to be out in this storm, is because visibility is very low in these heaviest areas of rainfall. This is the eye right here. It does look, if the last couple of updates there make it look like it might be making that easterly motion just a little bit, or that might be wishful thinking on my part so that we don't end up with storm surge in the bay. Here's a look at our current winds. They're sustained at 44 miles per hour in Sarasota, 16 in Tampa and Lakewood Ranch, and 24 in Sarasota. So the winds are going to pick up very quickly. When you look at wind gusts, we've seen a 63 mile per hour wind gust in St. Pete, 45 down in Sarasota, 49 in Venice, 38 mile per hour wind gust in Tampa, just updated, and 33 mile per hour wind gust in Zephyr Hills. Brooksville's seen a 45 mile per hour wind gust. The maximum wind threat is in our central zone here. We're talking Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota, and Polk counties, and it does include Highlands, DeSoto, and parts of DeSoto County as well. That's where we're going to see the 110 mile per hour threat of wind gusts. And so this is where we're going to see the most widespread power outages as well. When you get into the red, your range of high wind gusts will be between 75 and 110 miles per hour. And then for the Nature Coast, it's a little lighter, but still hurricane force wind gusts in a lot of cases. So worried about extensive power outages, especially in our windier areas, you guys.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. A lot to take in. Want to give you a live look
with you live here, folks. A live look at downtown Tampa. Yeah, let's show the Hillsborough River. This is right outside our studio. Check that. That's from our 4th floor. So that is our tower camera pointed at the river, and we'll monitor progress here. The real-time wobble tracker. We are still on the 4:30 scan. We'll monitor progress as to whether or not we are moving more towards Pinellas County or more towards Manatee and Sarasota counties. How's everybody doing out there? This is just a check-in. Facebook Live, YouTube Live. How's everybody feeling? Give me one word to describe how you're doing. Just type in a word in the chat, and I'm going to shout some words out. I'm just doing a temperature check. Want to know how our audience is doing, because this is a critical hour. We're waiting for the 5 o'clock update. The storm is hitting now, lashing many of our coastal counties. A lot of our coastal communities are experiencing a lot of the worst of what this storm can offer, even though the worst is very much ahead for many areas in line in the path of this storm. So let's see what we got. We got Kathy saying that she's anxious. We've got Fiona saying waiting. We've got Catherine saying concerned. I'm seeing people who are just putting in what beverage they're drinking. That's an interesting development. Joseph Camara, scared. Let's go to Destroyer, says cringing. Let's go over to Facebook Live and see what people are saying over on Facebook Live. We've got not too many. The most recent comments: stressed, nervous, praying, blessed. Praying. A lot of prayers coming in on Facebook Live. Expedition says sleepy. Sergeant Mitch says disappointed. Lady says scared. Joe B says worried. I'm seeing a lot of concern out there in the area. Folks, stay with us. We'll keep you up to date as to the latest movements with this storm. If you stay with us here, we will make sure that you have everything that you need to know to stay safe from this storm. The system right now has made that jog so slightly to the east. But what does that mean as the eye gets closer to landfall? Will it stay on the current trajectory and actually hit southern Pinellas County into Tampa Bay, potentially bringing that scenario of storm surge rushing into the bay? Or is it going to make that turn to the east and hit Manatee County, Anna Maria Island, Sarasota County? I mean, really, those areas are already being impacted, but we're really concerned about the surge. We're getting now to a stage in this where surge is our number one concern. It has been our concern for days. We've been talking about flash flooding. We've been talking about tornado warnings. We've been talking about downed trees and power outages and a lot of areas that have seen impacts from the outer bands of this storm. But our focus now is about the storm. It's on the storm surge, and whether or not the storm surge is going to be really focused to the bay itself, or is going to be focused to some of our coastal beaches to the south from Manatee County down through Sarasota County. So we'll see here when the next scan comes in, and we'll get to a few more submissions on WFLA.com/reported. These on Reported, by the way, folks, these are just coming in the last few minutes. So if you're sending in videos now, we can spotlight them. So we went to Port Charlotte earlier. Let's continue on in the queue. This is now Sandra. Wow, so things really picking up. This is the last few minutes. Sandra sending this in, 4 p.m., Wesley Chapel, Wiregrass Mall area, winds and rains picking up in Pasco County. Jeff Patterson out in the elements.
Behind me, as you can see, is the Marjorie Park Yacht Basin, and I will tell you, just looking over the edge of the seawall here, the water is really down from where it normally would be at this time, well down from where a high tide would be. When we were driving along the bay shore a short time ago, we could literally see the water kind of pushing out of the bay. That, of course, is great news for the people who live here at Davis Island. Of course, during Hurricane Helene, they suffered tremendous storm surge here. You can still see all of the debris that is collected from these first 4 apartments as people suffered significant damage here, and they've been working very hard to clean up their property from Hurricane Helene. The crews that have been picking up this storm debris still haven't been able to get to all of Davis Island. It's just because of the huge volume of storm debris here. But I just want to point something out as we're kind of walking and talking along here. Photographer Joey Capistrand doing a great job of sticking with me. But if you'll look out into the street, starting to see, unfortunately, some of those things that have been in these debris piles kind of being pushed out by the wind into the middle of the street. Unfortunately, this makes it even more hazardous to be out here because these are boards that I can see with nails in them and things like that. So as we were driving on to Davis Islands, we noticed that there was some water coming up, and that is purely from the amount of rain that we've been getting here. There's been a lot of rain all day long here in Tampa, and so the water that we're seeing on the streets is purely from that, not from the storm surge, because as I pointed out over there in the Marjorie Park Yacht Basin here, I'm even seeing the water level on the vessels that is rather low, and then along the seawall and the rocks that are at the base of the seawall, we could see almost to the bottom of those rocks. So it's just really incredible to notice what happens when the wind is taking the water in the opposite direction. And as we've been talking about all day long, we expected the storm surge to be worse on the southern part of the eye wall of Hurricane Milton. And I would gather that the people here on Davis Islands have been very nervous, and people in Tampa have been very concerned about where exactly that eye wall would be, because of course they don't want to see any more storm surge or damage. But we're keeping an eye on the wind and the conditions here as we go along to try to bring you the best images possible. But right now the wind has been picking up. And as you can tell, the rain around me is becoming more intense. And photographer Joey Capistrand is a pretty big guy, and for him to try to hold the camera, even though he's shielded by a building in part, it's not easy. So guys, we're going to toss it back to you, and we will keep an eye on the conditions as they evolve throughout the course of the evening.
Hey, Jeff, I don't know if you can still hear me with that wind blowing, but it seemed like it was kind of, I'm not going to say calm, but it was not so bad. Now it's picking up again. You used to carry around that wind gauge, that wind meter. You don't have that thing with you anymore, do you? Because I'm curious to know what kind of wind you have.
I don't, Keith, because I've noticed over time that wind gauge wasn't 100% accurate, and I only want to be able to bring you